What's up, everybody? Happy Monday and welcome to Wrestling Tonight, the 1st of June, live from No Sale Studios. I'm the Acefield Tavern, Acefield Retro, and as always, I'm joined by the one bad Chad, the co-founder of the Turnbuckle Tavern. What's up, dude?
Not a whole lot, man. Not a big week as far as news. I feel like some good news, some pretty cool news, but not. I feel like when we come out of a weekend like Memorial Day weekend with all of the events that were going on, this is a nice kind of. We're digging into the details here this week, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, the busboy came, cleared off the table of Double or Nothing weekend. We're getting ready to set the table for Forbidden Door and further on the summer with everything else going on with AEW, WWE. We got a lot on the table with Impact as well. GCW, man, there's so much stuff to cover. And I mean, at this point, we say it every time. It sounds hyperbole and it also sounds exaggerated at this point, but what a beautiful time to be a wrestling fan. You and I were waxing poetic about the possibilities off air, about potential matches and dream matches that are coming to fruition, and has me feeling like a kid again.
Oh yeah, man. There's so much. I feel like this is going to be a very, very fun summer. We got Forbidden Door on the horizon, All In, All Out, SummerSlam, tons of stuff, Slammiversary. There's so many cool events happening, and I feel like it's going to be a monumental summer full of big, memorable moments.
Yeah, and the main thing I want going into this summer is a summer of positivity, because if you looked at how we went into the summer with the MJF stuff going on, work, shoot, whatever was going on with that, and now we're finally out of the woods, hopefully, fingers crossed, at the CM Punk stuff, mending fences in mid-June. We're going to get him on Collision. Seems like we're on the right path where the party of all parties will be in Wembley for people to enjoy wrestling. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, you can't ask for anything better.
Yeah, Phil, don't screw it up, man. Don't drop a pipe bomb in the middle of our good vibes. I'm hoping Collision is a success. I'm hoping everybody makes up and it's all sunshine and rainbows, but we'll see.
All right, well, put your party hats on. Let's get into the big three and talk about what the stories are in wrestling.
Big stories. Story 1.
Story number 1, WWE unveiled their new undisputed WWE Universal Championship belt. This was during the 1,000-day celebration that Triple H had presented this to Roman Reigns. When this was presented, this was about 1,006 days. It was almost a week removed from Night of Champions, which was his exact 1,000-day. Obviously, Roman Reigns has held that Universal Championship since August 30th, 2020, who he defeated Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman. They're never going to mention that on TV. And in April 2022, he beat Lesnar for the WWE Championship to unify both of them. Essentially, he was carrying around both belts. The thing that has me stuck here, and of course we can talk about what the belt looks like aesthetically, and there's been some criticism, but I would kind of banter back and say, what did you expect?
Right.
This is sort of par for the course for the last 5-6 years, what WWE does with their title belts. But the other thing that has me stuck, and I have it bouncing around my head, is it seems like they're at a place where the WWE Championship and their lineage has to be liquidated if they want to keep this 1,000-day reign.
I mean, yeah, it looked like we were kind of discussing this a little bit prior to going live. It looks like a situation where what are you going to do? Either you're ending the legacy of one title, and that history is kind of now, it has a beginning and end, or you're combining two title histories, which how do you do that? I mean, I guess it's easy. It just kind of convolutes the history of it. When you get to this point, now there's multiple champions that reigning at the same time, as far as from the historical aspect of it. When you look at the lineage of these titles, like how do you, it's strange, man. I feel like we're losing the history of the more important title. I know they're really pushing this Universal Championship, and maybe we're at a crossroads in history where when we look back, this is them kind of staking claim for modern wrestling. Like, okay, that's the old, and this is the turning point for moving forward into the future with WWE. And this is what we want to saddle our new, this is what we want to saddle history to now. This is what we want to create history with, is this title. I guess boxing's done it, we're create a new title, give it more importance, but I don't know, man. Something about that WWE championship, the Bruno, the Hogan, all of that just bottled up into a beginning and an end. What do you think, Ace? Are they just going to box that up, or are they going to strap that history to this Universal? And does that make sense for you?
I think they're going to try to combine both histories where in everybody's mind, maybe they're going to change the course of history and pretend that this title was always associated with it. And if we get 10 years removed, they're going to look at the same title that Pedro Morales held that he's about to pass at 1,027 days is the same title that Roman held. But I think if they have a time machine, if they knew that how this was going to happen, go all the way back to when he defeated Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship, they probably would have just done the reverse and had him win the WWE Championship and have Brock be attached to Universal, because it'd be so much easier if it's 1,000+ days on the WWE Championship. This Universal Championship is fairly new, less than 10 years old. Finn Balor being the first ever champion, and go, throughout the history of the names that have held it, it is not as prestigious as the WWE Championship. And that's an understatement. I mean, the title, it has essentially been the co-championship always. Now it feels, again, it is the essential championship. Roman Reigns has been the big bad for 3 years, 4 years going forward. Hasn't been pinned since Baron Corbin pinned him all these years back. So as we sit here, my fear is that they're going to wipe out the history or find a way to tie it together where it doesn't make sense. I mean, you can definitely, there's in history where they take an old NWA championship and combine it with a new one, go through the lineage and see how they're attached, but it's not the WWE championship. When they did combine the old Undisputed Championship, go back to when Jericho won it from Triple H, or Triple H won it from Jericho, whatever, and they got the new belt. And then you also go with most recently when Randy Orton combined them with John Cena. They always took on that WWE Championship lineage and kind of put a end mark on the other title.
Right.
That's the precedent that's set. So my fear is, again, they're going to do that. But if I had to guess, they would find a way to keep the WWE lineage and have somehow Roman be tied into, he's been WWE champion for all this time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're going to try and combine the lineages, attach the old lineage to this new title, and say that it's just kind of a transition of power as far as that belt is now this belt. And let's be honest, the casual fans, they don't give a shit about this stuff.
Exactly.
We're haggling over this because we're hard. and honestly, even the hardcores, 4, 5, 6 years from now, they'll just come to accept it. And then there'll be a few of us assholes out there going, yeah, but that's not what the real title, like, in the grand scheme, they're going to do what they're going to do, and we're just going to buy into it, and it'll all be forgotten. But it sticks in my craw when they do stuff like this, especially now. I feel like they're two titles. They're two quote unquote world titles after combining the Universal and the WWE Championship are pretty new. I mean, Universal's a fairly new one. It just seems like the fucking IC belt has more history than our world titles now. As far as if you're going lineage and everything, I'm a sucker for like title histories and knowing that this is the same title that Hogan held when we were kids, and now Roman's the guy. And not having that, like I said, people go along with it. They'll just accept that the Universal Championship has absorbed the history of that other title. But for the nitpickers and for the people that lean on history and love the history of it and follow those titles, it bothers me. It bothers me that their two most important titles now are the two titles with the shortest histories.
Yeah, the World Heavyweight Championship is going to be taking on the 2002 lineage. So first champion was Triple H, awarded during the Ruthless Aggression era, and they went forward. So that title didn't acquire any of the WCW Championship history, which it probably should have. It would have given it inherent importance, but whatever. They own that history. Maybe they didn't want any of the WCW champions being recognized.
Right.
But for this title as well, they're going to figure out a way to make this predominantly the WWE Championship, but his reign was 1,000+ days, and that's confusing. There are going to be people sitting in a room somewhere trying to have this exact conversation. How do we tie it together? As of right now, June 4th, 9:56 a.m. when we're recording this, the updated lineage of the history of who held the belts and where it exists on the website, it's not there yet. So maybe we'll have an answer coming next week. As far as aesthetically talking about the title, and there's been some people, goofing on the title and all that, gold plated. They just it seemed lazy, all that. I wasn't shocked though. Like I sat there and saw the title. It just kind of, a wave came over me. I was just like, this is a WWE championship at this point. That's what I expected. They want the big logo prominent. So when they give it to a Super Bowl champion, they can have their logo out in front. They put no effort into changing the design. The women's championship looks the same. So I didn't expect anything different when they unveiled the title.
No, like you said, it was exactly what I expected. I mean, they essentially changed the color scheme, and then it looks a little smaller. Is it smaller than the Universal title? It didn't look as big.
I'd have to look at them side by side. It definitely had a different shape at the top, but again, it's also just it's the same title essentially. Might as well be. They can create that title endlessly. Just keep color variations
Right.
back in the day. What they did with Ultimate Warrior gave them the different color strap. It's the same title essentially.
It's the same thing. Change the straps out, change the side plates out a little bit here and there, but I think the WWE logo is, what is it, black now? Like what is it?
I think it's still white. If you pull up the picture we have on the it is. It has a darker tinge to it, but I think it has the white diamonds on it as well. But
okay,
it's just it to me. It's just they understand it's merchandising too. They're gonna have those marks that bring belts to the events. They're already ordering off WWE Shop. That was available Friday night, so they can dress up like Roman Reigns, put the glove on, and walk around a 45+-year-old man dressed like Roman Reigns and not defending their title. If I see you with the title, man, I'm gonna take a stab at it. You carrying those titles around an event, you should have to defend them 24/7.
Yeah, Sneed hates people that carry titles at events. I would never want to have to carry that shit. I wish you could buy merch before the event or after the event. I mean, because I hate having a bag of merch with me at my event, and I have to worry about if somebody spills a soda and it gets all over my shit in the floor. But yeah, man, I think it's something that people kind of forget. We get all up in arms about changing titles, title designs, lineages, and all this. And at the very base root of it all, I know, you're keeping tradition, but at the very base, it's a business move. It's like every time you switch a title, every time you change the design, you flip the straps, anything, we're going to see that at the merch stand. That's a reason for people. Oh, a new belt. They want to have that. There's a lot of belt marks out there. Sneed loves belts. He's a belt mark. But there are people that are even bigger belt marks than he, where they have all of those titles on their wall, featured in cases, hanging on the walls. So yeah, every time a new belt design happens, every time a new belt is created, that's a cha-ching. That's money in the bank for the company.
So I just pulled it up on WWE Shop. It's 35% off for the weekend, if you guys want to make the order. $499. It does have a little bit of a black tinge to it as well, as I have it here. You guys can see on the screen.
Okay.
So it has a little bit of the black diamonds in between, but immediately put up on WWE Shop. That's how people are getting the high-res photos of it, because obviously in the arena, the lights are flickering off of it immediately right on WWE Shop, and people are putting in their order for $500. So can't blame them, feeding the cash cow. The rich get richer of WWE side. But for me, again, I think for people that are disappointed, you had your hopes too high for this title. If you're expecting the Winged Eagle or something better than that, they just never going to give it to us.
No, I think all of us kids of the 80s and 90s, early 90s, we had our fingers crossed for the Winged Eagle coming back. And damn Cody Rhodes for putting it out into the ether of the universe and teasing us that he would want to bring that back if he wins it. I wouldn't be shocked. That's another way to get more belts sold. Cody wins the title and brings it back revamped. People would be all over that too.
But my thought is for the Winged Eagle, similar to the World Heavyweight Championship, where they put that giant logo in the middle. I guarantee you they bring back the Winged Eagle with a big WWE right in the middle of it. And people will be like, oh, it's okay. It's just they want branding. No, I want the Winged Eagle exactly the way it was.
Yes. Don't mess with it.
But also,
Don't mess
too,
with it.
if you listen to any sort of, Bruce Pritchard podcasting, the Winged Eagle championship belt isn't as popular as everyone likes to believe. We remember it fondly because of the times and memories associated with it. But on that side of business, Bruce Pritchard's been very adamant that he didn't like that championship belt. And not that he has the be all end all say of things, but if he has that feeling, maybe that's shared with among other people because it was too small or they didn't like it. I think a lot of that gets associated with our memories. My first initial memory of wrestling is that championship belt. So how does nostalgia play a piece of it? I still think it's a nice belt, though.
It's nostalgia. I think a lot of it is nostalgic, and I'm never one to agree with Bruce Pritchard, but I love that belt. But at the same time, my one critique of it has always been, I do think it's too small. And I know there's a lot of critiques out there, since we're going into belt talk. There's a lot of critiques out there that the AEW world title is too big. I love a big hulking title. I would much rather have a massive title, especially the world title. I would rather it be big than too small. I just think, like, that's why I love the big gold, man. The big gold looked important. That's why I love those early UFC titles before they revamped them a couple years ago. It just the big, bold gold. I like a big world title, and I do think for me, the Winged Eagle was a touch too small.
So I was watching Bash at the Beach 1995, main evented by Hulk Hogan and Vader in a cage. And funny enough, the event is interesting because it takes place on the beach. So I love WCW's aesthetic being elsewhere.
I love it.
There's 9,500 people there, and Tony Schiavone's selling that there's hundreds of thousands of people gathered on the beach where they zoom over the top. Anyway, yeah. Hulk Hogan is wearing his WCW championship belt, and it's so evident that it is the world title. Any other belt you see during the night, the US title, the tag titles, they don't look as impressive. And this belt on Hulk Hogan, who's a big dude, obviously 6'8", 6'9", whatever he is, 6'7". Yeah. Now with the hip injury and the spine injury, it's like he's
lost a few inches.
He's lost a few inches, but the belt itself is so beautiful and shining with the sun on it. Yeah, it's funny that we mentioned this right now, but again, I asked you, what did you expect, guys, for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship? Did you expect them to come out and wow you guys? No, it's always going to be this big logo on the front. They've gone corporate, and this is what and it works though. We can't fight the hustle because this is what works for them.
Do you think titles should be updated as much as they are, as far as like looks? Like, would you AEW, I feel like, updated the women's world title like 3 times since the company started. I think more of that was like a kind of an autocorrect. Like,
yeah, they had the Japanese tiny strap.
It's super tiny, and then they just increased the size, and then they completely changed it. Do you think updates are important, or do you, like, if you had to pick one or the other, would you want a consistent updated title every few years, or would you rather lock in a good title, be happy with it, and just carry that design for the foreseeable future? What would you do?
I would lock it in because I'm a sport-minded guy. The Stanley Cup doesn't get changed every few years.
100%, dude. The Super Bowl, the Vince Lombardi Trophy does not change. It is.
And I think I love watching video package of that same championship belt get passed along every era. And that's the beautiful part about it. I love, one of the last to go was the old school tag team championship that hung around through the Attitude Era, through the Ruthless Aggression before they eventually changed them. It was almost like they forgot they were there. But it was so cool to see teams like the Hart Foundation, but also William Regal and Lance Storm holding those tag titles, or Christian and Chris Jericho, same exact belt, same exact logo. I don't even think they updated the scratch logo on them. It was still, they probably put the WWE logo on it. But even when they were in the Attitude Era, they had the old school WWF logo that was still the New Generation logo.
Yeah.
But I think the titles should remain the same if possible. I mean, sometimes you have to update them. The IC title was one of those situations where they probably didn't have to update it, but for whatever reason, they wanted to make it look different. And I don't know if it's like Stockholm syndrome. That title's growing on me at this point. Maybe
Ugh,
because
I hate that title. I
Gunther
hate
has,
that title.
but I associate with Gunther now, so maybe I'm looking at it fondly because of that. Yeah, I think it's if possible to keep the title's lineage, but for the World Championship, I understand wanting the big logo on it because that's branding and it's all tied to the sports stuff. When you give the World Series champion and the Super Bowl champion the belt, you want your logo being prominent, but that's what you're going to base everything on. Come on, everybody knows the brand.
Well, I know it's sports entertainment, and like you said, you come from the sports fan world, so you like to see that Stanley Cup being held by the teams generations apart. I'm the same way, and I think this is where you see that wrestling business takes over the sport of it all. You know, it's not about the merchandising of the titles. That's why I gotta always throw respect to the 10 pounds of gold, man. When I see Nick Aldis holding that belt, it takes me back to Harley Race holding that belt because that's what makes that title important in the eyes of really hardcore fans, is because it's that same title. You look those old school when Rick still had the flowing blonde white locks and the suits, man, and he's holding the 10 pounds of gold. That's the same belt we're seeing today, and there's something special about that. I get the business of it all. I get that things need to change and be updated, but if it was my way, get a belt, make the design, be happy with it. You know, I see you got to make changes. It's a little too small, let's make it bigger. But once you get it locked in and you're happy with the title, I love the history of it. I like seeing those hockey teams holding the Stanley Cup holds prestige. The Vince Lombardi trophy holds prestige. That I wish we had a little more of that in wrestling, of that really honoring history in the quote unquote sport.
Well, I think there's been obviously precedent set from the business side. If Gary Bettman knew he can make significant money on the Stanley Cup changing hands, he would do that.
Yeah.
I look point in case the NBA with the uniforms, because I have an issue with the amount of uniforms, and this is like, old man yelling at the clouds type of thing. But for the NBA teams, I remember when the Cavs won the NBA finals and they were wearing the black t-shirt jerseys, or when the Cubs were wearing their blue batting practice jerseys when they broke the fucking 100+ year streak. Like, to me, uniforms are everything as well, but you see that these sport leagues, they do exactly what WWE is doing with the uniforms. They're trying to get people to buy all these
That's
City
a great
Connect jerseys. So if they can make significant money and have a revenue stream coming in, they would do it. So we can't blame WWE. This is a big way for them to make money and also set their champions apart. And that's what they kind of want at this point.
And at the same time, though, if you if the Yankees came out and eliminated the pinstripe uniforms, people would fucking revolt.
Well, they're coming out. They've always been. I'm a diehard Yankee fan, but the pinstripe jerseys, the road jerseys, they've never changed. They've had a couple times off where they would have the players' weekend jerseys they'd wear, that all black, and then they're coming out. Everyone's having these City Connect jerseys that have been released progressively, and some of them are beautiful, some of them are not, and there's been some interesting designs. The Yankees are slotted to have one, so I'm curious what they do. My guess is they do something like back when they were the Highlanders. They're going to do something, a cream colored thing when Mickey Mantle's on the team. I can't see them stepping outside the box, but once you do that, similar with WWE, begrudging your history and just saying, fuck it, let's just go all in, people start to not care, because the same thing happened with the Red Sox. Once they started putting names on the uniforms, now they have alternate jerseys. They have a red jersey. They have a dark blue jersey. They have all these different uniforms that they wear a green jersey sometimes because that's what they do for the Green Monster. But once you break tradition, all bets are off. Then the floodgates open. Same thing with the WWE Championship. Once you forgo what is important as far as history, consistency, then it's like, let's just make money anywhere we can.
I'm a traditionalist in the sports world like that, man. Like, I don't want to see. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. If they fucked with our helmets and gave us a new hip graphic design for that star on the helmet, people would have meltdowns across the country, especially in Texas. But I like, to me, that honors. They've messed with it a little bit, but for the most part, keep it. Lean into that tradition. It ties people in, and even the casual modern fan, there is something to be said that to them, when they get into their 40s, 50s, 60 years old, there's going to be a tradition for them too. And they'll be having this, they'll be fighting for that new IC title. Well, they changed it, and the cycle continues.
It's so interesting because you look at that 90s WWF Intercontinental title, the one that Kent Shamrock held, and The Rock and Triple H and all that. To me, it's small. And we look at it from a nostalgia lens, but it's not the best looking championship. It's this oval shape. I don't like it. The first IC championship to me is the best one. The one that they had.
Shawn Michaels.
I'm not talking the Pat Patterson one. I'm talking the Ultimate Warrior one. I'm talking Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect. That's the best one.
Yeah, that was my favorite. Like when was it Cody Rhodes that brought back the white strap?
Yep. That's why people think the Winged Eagle is going to happen because of him, because he has history of pushing it through. Kayfabe
when he brought that back, I was so stoked because that is the IC belt. That's my favorite title of all time, is that version. And that's why I love Gunther, but I got heat with the brother because he's that new IC belt took away my favorite title of all time. So
I'm not sure who the first person to have it. I can think back. Obviously, he beat Shinsuke for it. It's been around for a while, so we can't put it all on.
We can't put it on
Walter.
Yeah, I've warmed up. Well, I've kind of let him slide with the Gunther change. It's not his fault. I'm still a Walter guy, but I mean, he's one of my dudes. He's one of my top guys. So,
but yeah, we'll stay tuned for the lineage of the belt as it's updated. I'm sure they're going to have an answer for us as far as, because we always talk about this. What they have over every other wrestling promotion, including AEW, is their history and lineage. So you can't bastardize that too much, because that's what you have.
That's the strength of what that is. Everything. That's something that they have that no one can get. Like the only way other people can get that is time. Like they will always have that history unless someone purchases the rights to like WCW and try. But even that, you can't, no one will ever have. The only other company that has it, but they don't have the power, is NWA.
Yes, exactly. All right. Want to get into big story number 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
Big story 2.
One of my favorite weekends of the year, Tournament of Survival, hosted by GCW. This is the 8th edition of this tournament. And man, what a time. I love this. People say Memorial Day sets off the summer. For me, the last couple of years, my wrestling fandom, this sets off the summer. It's always the first weekend in June. This set a attendance record for GCW, so silver lining of having to move out of the carousel room. This is the first Tournament of Survival that I've seen in a few years that's not there. Obviously hosted elsewhere other years. This was held in same place, the Showboat. It's only a few steps away from the carousel room. Different aesthetic. It felt more like a warehouse than a carnival party. But this was an awesome tournament. I wouldn't say it topped last year at all. But the full field had some interesting names. El Desperado of New Japan Pro Wrestling was there. The Ultraviolent Champion RINA YAMASHITA was there. We also got Harada, Segura, Joey Janela, Sawyer Wreck, Casey Kirk, John Wayne Murdoch. We got Bos Los Macizos, Ciclope, and Miedo Extremo, which was interesting to see them on other sides of the ring. Of course, Matt Tremont and Green Phantom. So interesting enough, they had triple threat matches for these rounds, made it go a little bit faster, less abuse on the bodies. But we had some awesome, if you're into deathmatch wrestling and just shock value and just having a good time with weapons, this is the type of tournament that you should check out. The light tubes aside, you have beds of barbed wire being created. Of course, they use the scaffolding and find ways creatively to put each other through glass and also through light tubes. Awesome tournament with these triple threats. A lot of good stuff here. We saw the finals wind up being RINA YAMASHITA versus John Wayne Murdoch, and they tore it up. The Duke of Hardcore versus RINA YAMASHITA, the reigning Ultraviolent Champion. So now going into tonight, as we're filming this, Cage of Survival for GCW is happening tonight. So as you are listening to this, the result already. RINA YAMASHITA is going to be getting a shot at Masha Slamovich's GCW championship in the Cage of Survival. And they may go all in. Either way, even if she loses to Masha, she is the reigning Ultraviolent Champion. She's being booked pretty much strong against everybody. She went through that tournament and looked like $1 million. You look at guys as well, like throughout the history of this tournament, it's a good barometer of who they want to build their company around. guys like Nick Gage, Alex Colon. But we're going to get also lost in all this, and you and I covered it at length. RINA Yamashita is going to be challenging another woman for the GCW World Championship. So it's amazing to see how progressive Game Changer Wrestling is.
Yeah, they're making. I mean, if they go all in on RINA, that's a huge move. I think this is a way out. You know, she just had a crazy weekend going through the tournament of survival. So I think that's a way for her to lose. And everyone's like, yeah, I get that. But to have your ultra-violent champion taking on your world champion, who happens to be Masha Slamovich, who's also doing great work in Impact Wrestling, pretty ballsy move, man, by GCW. I think they got to be commended for that. And just to go back to, like, you were giving the superlatives to the tournament of survival, guys, this is, like, in my opinion, this is the WrestleMania tournament of deathmatch wrestling. Like, this is the premier tournament. So if you're, I feel like for casual fans of just like mainstream pro wrestling, they think of deathmatch wrestling as this kind of low rent indie stuff with untalented people. You see the clips of the backyard wrestling versions of this. Dude, this is the elite of that genre. And I think this genre, especially with social media and Twitter, it's gained a certain level of respect. I think even like the Dark Side of the Ring portrait on Nick Gage kind of shined light on a little bit of that. You're always going to have critics to this type of wrestling. I think it's like film. You know, I love drama, but I like a horror movie every now and then. I like a comedy. You know, I like all colors of the paintbrush. You know, I want to use it all. And if you want to try and get into deathmatch wrestling, Tournament of Survival, man, check it out. And I was shocked that Joey Janela was in it again, because I think it's been a few years since he was in it, right? He wasn't in it last year.
He was not in it last year. I think he was in it the year before, but it was interesting because he was in that first match with Toru Segura and Tomoya Harada, and Janela lost. Like, I thought for sure they're going to push him through to the semifinals, at least have him go out there, but their booking strategy was definitely different here. The goal was to make RINA look like the big bad, and they did that. They do that consistently where she looks unstoppable, and I love it because it's not about, and we always talk about this on the show, it's not about the spectacle of an intergender match. You're not looking at this match as RINA's a female taking on a male. I 100%, and maybe it's because I watch GCW that often, I never want, that doesn't come into my mind once. Like, no. RINA is just a badass wrestler taking glass tubes and taking as much punishment as anyone else in that tournament. And she might be the toughest person on earth. Like, what she went through with 3 death matches last night. Now she's going to go into Cage of Survival and take on Masha Slamovich on Sunday night. Win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. I mean, at this point, she's earned the respect of all. That's a hard audience to gain the respect of. Ask Blake Christian. It's it's just amazing to see what they've done. And I would love to see her get an opportunity on a bigger stage, because I think she has another skill set that can be tapped into that isn't just deathmatch wrestling. And that's a lot of what we see. Of course, she's the ultra-violent champion. That's how she's going to be showcased.
Yeah.
She's a very talented woman that would be suited for another promotion. I'm not trying to take her away from GCW, but I'd be interested in try her chops in different styles of wrestling, because as you mentioned, a lot of these guys have the ability to work outside of the deathmatch. That's the beauty of it. There's a psychology to these matches. And of course, you have to suspend some level of disbelief during these matches because it's a death match. That's the genre, right, as you mentioned, as far as genre in movies, but it's also just another station at the buffet table. If you don't like it, pick up the food. Don't leave it off your plate. But for me, this is just, it's more than garnish. This is an essential piece to the wrestling circle of things that go around. I think it's what has GCW has done, bringing deathmatch wrestling to the forefront and making it perceived in a much better light. You know, that's the legacy that they're leaving behind, of course, with other things, but deathmatch wrestling getting its flowers, and well deserved, because it has a certain sect that even back in the 70s and 80s, this stuff was going on. It just looked a little different.
Absolutely. And RINA, you talk about how when you see an intergender match in GCW, you don't think, oh, this is man versus woman. You know, they're equals. And I think they do a good job just in general in that. I think back to Thunder Rosa, Tony Storm, how hard hitting it was, and how you were just bought into the match of it all.
Yep.
But with like RINA, even though GCW handles handles intergender wrestling probably better than anybody in wrestling, I do think RINA earned her cred in that match with Alex Colon. I mean, when I saw that match, like that was like her coming out party for me, where I knew of her, but that match when she won the Ultraviolent title off of Colon, I was like, wow, honestly blown away. If you guys want just an introduction into RINA, go check out that when she won the title off of Alex Colon, the Ultraviolent title. It was incredible. And that just, that was the beginning of this highly impressive run from her. Like you win from Colon, who, correct me if I'm wrong, Ace, he's a 3-time Tournament of Survival winner, or was it 4-time?
Well, he's won at least 3 Tournament of Survivals, but other deathmatch tournaments that are out there before GCW started consolidating a lot of the tournaments. So he's won many tournaments. Like MLJ will put out all the credentials during the matches and talk about he's won the Nick Gage Open Invitational. He's won this. He's
Michael
won that.
Jordan of deathmatch wrestling.
100%.
Today.
Yeah.
Like he's
Safe
the
to say.
man. So she beats him. She goes into the Tournament of Survival 8, wins over John Wayne Murdoch, who arguably is one of the, I mean, there's an argument he's one of the top guys. He won IWTV's Wrestler of the Year, I think 2 years ago. John Wayne Murdoch is a madman. She beats him in the tournament. Now she goes to face the GCW World Champion in the Cage of Survival. Come on. This girl's having a moment. If you don't know RINA, check her out, because we get so inundated with wrestling. Like there's so much wrestling going on. And, you know, people bubble to the surface. You know, people, big names from every promotion kind of pop up. But she's one of those names that should be entering your head and you should be tracking her. You know, if you're just a wrestling fan, RINA YAMASHITA, she is very worth your time. So check her out, because I think she's in the middle of a very, very impressive run, but I think it's something we're going to look back at as a pretty historical moment for GCW with RINA.
Yeah, and especially where it led to this match with Masha. And of course, it's not the end of the story for either one of them. And of course, I think the finish of the Masha RINA match is going to eventually be, it's going to be telling what's going on with Masha on the Impact side. Maybe Impact's kind of tighten the reins a little bit on their talent where they don't want them doing as much. She'll pass a year, I think August 13th, 2022. She won it back in GCW Homecoming. You mentioned against Alex Colon. So we'll see her at least, I think, Ultraviolent champion for a year going forward. And I'm interested to see what happens, because you got to look at the history of deathmatch wrestling, the Terry Funks, the Cactus Jacks. They can work other styles. And I think RINA, given the opportunity, can go. And she's still a freelancer. We know GCW is the super indie where they don't have guys locked down. Of course, consistent dates and weekends booked up, but she's still out there. And I think this is going to bring a little bit more of her to the forefront, where Masha Slamovich, a big name, not just on the indies in GCW. I mean, she's an Impact, and she's one of the more formidable women all across wrestling. Taking her on in a big stage in a main event, it's going to bring some light to RINA, and well-deserved. I'm hoping we see RINA kind of bubble up in a big promotion sooner than later, where she can show her craft, that she's not just one-dimensional. I think she has the ability to do a lot. Her selling, the psychology in matches, she doesn't need light tubes to tell a story, but she tells a damn good one with them. So,
yeah, I mean, she went through another person kind of making a name for herself right now. Sawyer Wreck. I mean, that first
she
round
did such
match,
a great job during this tournament too. She's come such a long way.
She is like, she's another person that you keep, if you follow the news cycle, that name consistently popping up. You know, she was in that match with Matt Cardona and Steph DeLander here recently. Like, she's getting into big spots. Casey Kirk was in that triple threat in the first round against RINA, so she goes over those, and then obviously Toru, and then JWM, John Wayne Murdoch. So the Duke. Not to go back to the Joey Janela thing, but I thought but him being in this, I thought I thought he would go a little further, but the thing that I liked about it is he's so tied into the history of TOS. You know, you got to go back to when the Tournament of Survival was Zandig's when Zandig was still kind of branded on that tournament. And if you know Joey Janela, I think a lot of people heard of Joey Janela through the Zandig match when he went off that that roof into the back of the bed of that truck. Like that's when I think a lot of people took wind of him that weren't tapped into that scene. And to have Joey always adds, we talked about history in the big story number 1. Having a guy like that, even if he doesn't go far in the tournament, I think having a guy like that and Matt Tremont, when you have guys like that in a Tournament of Survival, that's rooting the tournament in the history of the tournament. I think it's important to have those guys in there passing on the credibility that they have brought. They're in there passing torches to these Sawyer Rex, to these RINAs. I think John Wayne Murdoch is a little, as far as the time he's put in that scene, he's even, you know, that was a passing of the torch from John Wayne into RINA, you know, like it's important to have the old school, because I think Tremont really represents that, the early days of deathmatch wrestling. And then you've got your Janellas, your John Wayne Murdochs, and now the new blood, the Sawyer Rex. And then you throw in an El Dorado, and just for the fun of it all, you know?
Yeah, it's fascinating to see what they do year after year, and they keep it relevant, they keep it interesting, and they shine a great light on all different types of wrestling. And in between all these matches, they put a scramble in between to kind of cleanse your palate a little bit. Blake Christian defeated Gringo Loco, Alec Price, and Jack Cartwheel, who we just saw. I mean, Blake Christian is predominantly featured on ROH TV, Gringo Loco as well, and Jack Cartwheel. But keep an eye out for Alec Price as well. He'll be popping up on the scene pretty quickly.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing the fucking GCW show, Alex Price, the kid's got a future too, because he was cutting some fun promos that we featured, that thick Boston accent that I love. So he's fun to watch.
Absolutely. And stay tuned for GCW. And if, like I said, you guys, by the time this drops, we know the result of RINA Yamashita and Masha Slamovich in the Cage of Survival. Putting my prediction out there, I think Masha retains, but RINA takes her to the limit, and they both walk out better for it. A big hug at the end, covered in blood, and that's how a GCW event should end.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that result. There's a part of me that wants RINA just to run the table on everything. It would just be fun to build just this epic 2-champ killing machine, but I think Masha will probably retain. We'll cover that next week. We'll have the results for you next week here on the show.
But let's get into big story number 3.
Big Story 3.
We have a CM Punk update for you guys, and seems like he's aiming for a program with Jay White. As we know, CM Punk is set to return for the live Collision premiere on Saturday, June 17th in Chicago. And we've been talking about potential programs. Initially, when the conversation happened, it was Chris Jericho. They were able to meet behind closed doors, have that meeting together, talk about working a program. Then we heard the idea of floating that Samoa Joe match to reignite their indie feud from the early 2000s. And now it seems like he's taken a liking to Jay White as an early opponent, early program. I eventually think we're going to see all three. I think we're going to see the Jericho match. Maybe Jericho is probably maybe the first. But all these have at least some intrigue for me. You know, the outside the ring stuff has intrigue as well of, can they make it work, and how is Collision going to be separated and all that. But as far as in-ring stories go, Punk and Jay White is something that wasn't possible only a few years ago with Jay White being locked up in New Japan Pro Wrestling and Punk not in wrestling at all. Now you guys have both of them here together, and kind of has some interest. And I think Jay White can take him to the limit on the mic. We've seen Jay White be able to throw some barbs out there. Punk will be challenged, and that's all you can ask for from Jay White. It'd be interesting to see how they book it, though, because you want to keep Jay looking strong. You know, Jay White, Club Gold, and I know wins and losses are not everything, but they've been doing a good job of keeping him strong. I think being fodder for a CM Punk return, that's not a first step. I think you have to build towards that, and maybe he gets the payoff win or something like that. But I want to make sure if we're doing this, we do it right. long form, making sure the story means something.
Yeah, especially, with the ties, the Bullet Club Gold and all of that. You'd have to do it right, give it time. Don't just have it be a one-off match on Collision. Like, put some stakes behind it. I like some of this, and there's aspects of this that I do not like. The thing I love about this is Jay White being in a program with CM Punk elevates Jay White to the casual fans, which I think is good. I think a lot of people that kept up with New Japan and Bullet Club, obviously Jay White is a big figure. For the other people that didn't, he's feuding with Ricky Starks. It seems very mid-card. I personally look at Jay White as a guy who's in the world title contention. Like, he's that important to me. But I think for the casual fan, being in a program with CM Punk is very, very important. The thing I do not like, every opponent that was mentioned as possibilities for a feud with CM Punk, Chris Jericho, Samoa Joe, and now Jay White. All of that, if anything can change, they could change the direction, whatever, with these people. But as it stands right now, all three of those guys are heels. Jay White, Samoa Joe, Jericho. Essentially, their characters are heels right now, which points to me that they are penciling in CM Punk as a babyface. I think he has to come back as a heel. I don't think he has to lean into talking and referencing the elite stuff, because it seems like they're very scared from a legality standpoint to lean into what went down at Brawl Out. But look at the mixed reactions Punk's getting. I think for him to come back we have yet to see him as a heel. I don't want to see the happy CM Punk happy to be back tour part 2. I don't want to see that. We got that when he first returned. I would love for him to come out on Collision and shoot absolute fire at the crowd. I think it would be fresh. It would be new. I don't want to see him stage diving into the crowd. I don't want to see him doing his little victory lap and hitting all the hands around the ring. I want to see something different. So the fact that these three opponents are what's lined up for him, I mean, I guess you could change any of those guys into a babyface. Outside of Jay White, I can't see that. It worries me, the direction of creative that those three possibilities kind of allude to.
Well, you mentioned creative, and it seems like Ace Steel is going to have a predominant role as far as creative on Collision goes. And there's been some conversation about his role in the all-out, brawl-out situation. But from all conversations outside of the company and inside, Ace Steel is viewed as this valuable piece that's understated because of his creative mind. And as a coach, the biggest thing here are the talent that's going to be around him open to working with him? And we don't know if they are, if they're not, because of his role and everything that went down. It seems like things and things are moving in the right direction where cooler heads have prevailed. Obviously, they announced CM Punk for United Center, and they did that because tickets need to move. And Ace Steel was a sticking point for Punk and everyone on his side because he wanted to get his boy his job back, and his relationship with Ace Steel is important to him. So if we could put that behind us and have Ace Steel put his best foot forward with heavily involved in creative, hopefully we get the best storyline possible for CM Punk. As you mentioned, I think he would work out better as a heel. I think it'd be damn challenging to bring him back as a pure white meat babyface. I just don't think it's happening. But I think the fans are going to force their hand either way. No matter who you're in a program with, I think he's going to get mixed reactions. And you noted they're all heels. Jay White, there's no one really more heel than he is. Same thing with Chris Jericho. He's been a heel predominantly for his whole run through AEW. And of course, fans, they boo him, but they're playing their part. Everybody respects.
He's the easiest one to change. You know what I mean? Like because he did at the end of Inner Circle, he was being babyface, and then the JAS shit, he went back, but people still sing his song. He's the easiest one to flip. I think Samoa Joe has that likability too, where he's a heel, but Joe is going to kill you. Fans like the bad. Jay is the one that's the more detestable of the three.
I just don't see a way that Punk gets a unanimous reaction. This is the first time AEW is going to have to deal with this because they've always had the crowd play a part of it and do what they're asked of. We mentioned last week, the crowds at AEW shows know their role. They go through the motions and boo the guys that need to be booed. And they've never had to deal with that mixed reaction that WWE had with people, boycotting or taking on their role in the show and moving in a different direction. We talk about, BRYAN DANIELSON throughout that run and booing John Cena over and over again. I think Punk's going to get a Cena a Jace type of reaction because of the reports, because of his own actions. It doesn't matter, but they'd be better suited leaning into it because you're more likely to feel that fire. There's already a gaslit there. You might as well just put a match to it and have people just give him a reason to boo him on screen. So it fits the aesthetic and narrative that you're going for on the AEW television. And we know how unlikable he can be as a heel. He's played that role so well. Just lean into it.
I think the closest AEW has ever been to this situation that they're going to be in with Punk as far as crowd reaction is Cody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When Cody was telling everyone, I'm never going to turn heel, and he's throwing his weight belt into the crowd's throwing it back to him.
Very good point. I almost forgot about Cody.
That was the one time the crowd was not buying what we were being sold. And I don't know what happened with Cody leaving, but I think there was a thing of Tony was probably wanting to lean into that because Tony listens to the crowd. Say what you want about Tony Khan. He does follow what the crowd gives him. And just from a speculative fan from 1,000 feet away, it seemed to me like Tony and the guys in the back wanted to lean into it. Cody saw himself in a different light. Look how he is portrayed in WWE. I think he's portrayed exactly the way he wants to be there as this white knight hero. And I think it was a smart move for him. But with CM Punk, man, it's going to be the same way. I think when you go to certain cities, obviously Chicago, he'll get a little more love. But I think there's certain cities they go to, he's going to get booed out of the building.
Well, even before all this went down, having been in Chicago for All Out, there was a mixed reaction for him too. Moxley was getting cheered, and I understand that's Moxley, his popularity at AEW. He's one of the most popular guys in the company's history. He was getting a mixed reaction where there was "Let's go Moxley, let's go Punk" chants dueling, and this was before the Brawl Out stuff happened. So maybe Punk galvanizes Chicago behind him. They unite and have this whole front of this is our guy. We're going to rally behind him. But I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't get a mixed reaction in Chicago. And I know that's crazy to say, but would not shock me because a lot of fans were disenchanted with the behavior, true or not, being presented online for us. And a lot of guys feel like he came in and did what he did. Whether it's right or not, I think fans are going to react a certain way because that narrative has been pushed so long, almost a year in our minds. And it's hard to escape that. So you might as well lean into it and make something out of this. Make him a heel that people detest and you can make money off this. If it's not the elite stuff, you can make money off him being a heel. We've seen how great he did. The Summer of Punk with Ring of Honor, his heel run in WWE. I think there's something there.
And you want to do something different? You know what I mean? Something we haven't seen before. Even Punk as a heel. Like, you want to do something different? Have him at the United Center at Collision, have him attack the Chicago crowd. You know, don't pull the Bret Hart move of I'm a heel in America, I'm a baby face in Canada. Don't pull the MJF, I'm a heel everywhere but Long Island, baby. Have him come out and go after the group of people that support him. It would be different. We've never seen that. He's always I don't think he has to shit on Chicago because just shit on the people there that I'm the true son of Chicago. I don't know, man. I don't want to see part 2 of what we saw in 2021. Yeah, I don't want to see that anymore.
The victory lap thing was getting old before all of this started anyway. And I don't want the prelim matches with Lee Moriarty and
No.
Powerhouse Hobbs, like straight to the meat. Let's go right into main programs and make it mean
Big
something.
programs. Because let's be honest, Ace. Punk's back. What's he back off of? I know Brawl Out, but he's coming off an injury.
Yeah,
and
pretty
prior to
serious
that, he had an injury. We don't know how long. He's mid 40s, dude. We don't have a lot of time with this guy. You can't dick around with the undercard. I know he wants to put young guys over. I think there's ways to get guys the rub from Punk without wasting his bump card on them. I think if you're going to use your bump card, dude, throw him into the big matches. I like the Samoa Joe thing. That's a callback to the ROH days. I don't have a problem with Jericho. That's fun to run that back. I think it would be interesting, especially with the heat, the things that Punk said in the press. I think both of those guys would tap into a little bit of that.
Yep.
And Jay White would be a hell of a lot of fun if it was a prolonged program, but you got to give us something different than Victory Lap Part 2. I don't want to see that.
Absolutely not. And remains to be seen. We're sitting here 13 days away from that. So less than 2 weeks, we'll have some answers to the questions we've been asking about since September of 2022.
Yeah.
Let's get into quick hitters.
Yeah, let's get into quick hitters.
Quick hitters.
All right. So for quick hitters, we're going to start, which should have been a top 3 story, but with us recording early on Sunday morning, this had just pretty much ended.
Just broke.
New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion. Main stories here. We're not going to break down the whole card. If you guys want to go out and watch, it was worth a watch. There's some good action on there, but there's some main meat stories that have affecting AEW at large and future events here in the United States or Canada, I guess, because Toronto, that's where Forbidden Door is. But IWGP United States Heavyweight Title number 1 contendership match. Will Ospreay, the worst kept secret, is going to be taking on Kenny Omega at some point. He defeated Lance Archer. So before we move past that, and we'll talk about their implications, Zack Sabre retained his TV championship. And of course, we had the debut of Claudio in Japan. Believe it or not, it's the first time he's ever been there. He teamed with Jon Moxley and Shota Umino to take on the dream team of Chaos, Okada, Ishii, and then Tanahashi for the never openweight 6-man tag team championship. Chaos and Hiroshi Tanahashi got the win there. But that's not the story, Chad. So I'll let you lead us through what the main pull away of New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion was, what you'll see pop up on your timeline, the conversations, and frankly, the chills that come from this moment.
Okay, so this morning, let me set the table. Like, me and Ace were like, we're not tapped into the Japanese time zone. We were thinking, for whatever reason, this was happening after we record. I wake up prepping to sit down with Ace, do the show. I see a still shot of a very old, grizzled, angry Bryan Danielson and exclamation marks from the person who posted it. I go searching. What we found out at Dominion, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Bryan Danielson called out Okada. And this is all roads lead to Forbidden Door 2. Goosebumps on my arm right now. And we have that call out. So strap in and listen to Danielson call out the Rainmaker.
Call yourself the Rainmaker, but you step in the ring with me, and you're getting into the desert, and there ain't gonna be no rain.
That's in the running for the hardest line delivered in 2023, dude. Oh, man, when he said the line about they call you the Rainmaker, when you get in the ring with me, you're going to be entering the fucking desert. I mean, come on. How my eyes water up with excitement. What do you think, Ace? Danielson, Okada at Forbidden Door, plus we're getting supposedly Ospreay and Omega Part 2. What do you think about Forbidden Door and all these possibilities?
I think you have to pull the trigger on that. And of course, we saw Okada in different capacities. He was a part of the first All In show. He was a big part of that. He took on the forgotten Marty Scurll. So that people forgot that existed. That was a huge match as well. But this is a dream match. And this is the type of stuff, Bryan Danielson, we mentioned utilizing your bump card for meaningful stuff and tapping into that well of things that haven't been done before. This has potential to have that big moment in front of a crowd in Toronto who's going to be hot as hell for Forbidden Door. You have to pull the trigger. It's the best of AEW versus the best of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Put them in a ring together. And as far as booking it goes, that's challenging too, because both these guys are top guys. We know Bryan Danielson has a tendency to lean wanting to put guys over. So it wouldn't shock me if the Rainmaker was the end of Bryan Danielson in that match, but has me intrigued to see where it goes, because this is also tied into this main feud with BCC and the Elite.
Yeah.
Because it's not over. We heard Takeshita mention Okada, and there was some conjecture that maybe it'd be Takeshita versus Okada at Forbidden Door. When he mentioned Okada, they panned up to the Forbidden Door banner that's hanging in the rafters. But I think we're still going to get more story here, where we potentially will get blood and guts on free TV, which could be the Elite versus BCC with Okada involved and Ibushi. Obviously Takeshita with BCC. They probably have to find someone else on their side. Maybe they just pick out Shota Umino and bring him in here for the blood and guts. But I think we're going to get that, and that's going to be the appetizer for Forbidden Door. We get at least one blood and guts a year, and it's been on free TV, so it wouldn't shock me to have it here. And this would be, tune in at the end of June and check out our pay-per-view. We're going to give you this as I said, an appetizer to get you guys started for this and build the story. And there's so much potential of other things going on here. The other thing you can also do is have Will Ospreay be a part of BCC as well, if you want to pull him on the other side with Kenny Omega, because that's the other match I think we're going to get at Forbidden Door. And that's also the offshoot of how great All In is, because you could save some other matches where I think this would be huge money matches. And I think everyone will wait to have Bryan Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. because we didn't get it last year. It has to be a Forbidden Door. It has to be there because it was supposed to happen last year. They probably wait for that for All In now in front of Wembley.
Just wait.
So it's just fantastic, the options that have opened up just by working collaboratively with other promotions and having the willingness to be creative and be progressive in your thinking that, yeah, some of our guys will look weaker next to New Japan Pro Wrestling, but you know who will look great? Pro wrestling at large, because all fans are benefiting from this.
Well, I think you floating the idea that Ospreay kind of joins BCC in some sort of capacity. I think there's something to that, possibly, because if you remember, I believe Don Callis made a tweet where he said bruv, which is, and then Ospreay had that's an
Ospreay idiom for sure.
Yeah, so there's a connection there, and I think if we're going into Forbidden Door with, maybe he doesn't join, but it's just alliances.
Same thing with Takeshita. It's a loose association, business deals, shaking hands with the devil of Don Callis, and hell yeah, let's get to work, man. That's
super fun.
The Danielson promo was so good. You and I were talking about it off air. He's having so much fun. Like, when was the last time you saw him put a promo that passionate?
That's what I was about to say, man, is take a minute to really look at what Danielson has done upon entering AEW. I think Tony Khan should be commended for the way he's handled Danielson. He's giving this guy, he enters, we get that amazing 30-minute match with Omega at Arthur Ashe. That match, still to this day, the opening of that match when the fans are losing their shit when the bell rings, it gives me goosebumps. He gets fun little dream matches on AEW TV, like with Timothy Thatcher, all of these fun little matches. Then he gets one of the most epic Iron Man matches ever. He gets in the Anarchy in the Arena. This dude is having the time of his life right now, and he's booked perfectly. Like it's Bryan Danielson is getting to do things that we never would have got to see Daniel Bryan do. And I think I loved the Daniel Bryan run, the Yes Movement, all of that was fun. But I think he made the right decision, because we're getting to see him tap into the early stages of his career, but now he has that grizzled vet history attached to him, and he holds a lot of weight. And I honestly, anytime you see someone plying their trade and they're having fun, I think it comes across, and you can feel that they're having the time of their life. And I feel that Bryan Danielson is having just, he's tapped in, man. We're seeing a special side of Bryan Danielson right now.
Yeah, this is the anti Bret Hart booking in WCW. This is how you handle a legend, and this is how you give them, pay them back for taking a risk for coming to AEW, because he had a guaranteed contract with WWE. He could have stayed there. They would have maybe not had him have these dream matches like Shinsuke Nakamura can go out there and have these matches. And of course, they let him go to Wrestle Muto, but for the most part, AJ Styles, it just becomes like paint by numbers. You're comfortable, not taking as many bumps. You're working the safe style. You're paying back Bryan Danielson for taking a risk on your side. Because if you look at historically, when you leave that safety net, and that's what the hesitation for a lot of guys when AEW started, not discrediting them, but like CM Punk waited until it was established. And that's definitely his right to do that. That's why I give guys like Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley a lot more credence, because of the fact that they took a risk to an unknown entity, knowing that it could flop if their name would, then their name would be associated with it. For a guy like Bryan Danielson to take a risk and leave and give Tony Khan, who is still initially a rookie booker, like he's someone who only has a few years under him, as he's been a wrestling fan for many years, but as far as having the book and making creative decisions, put a lot of trust in that guy. And also now Bryan Danielson is making those decisions that he probably wouldn't have had. He had input on SmackDown, he had input, but when the time comes up, and hopefully it's years from now, when Bryan Danielson hangs those boots up, he's going to have a prominent role in the AEW front office of making decisions, and that wrestling mind to tap into, the history that's in that mind, and his ability to tell stories in the ring. I'm hoping it's translating for decades to come for this young talent, paying dividends of telling stories. I love it, man. And Bryan Danielson, I've been saying it over and over again, my favorite wrestler of all time. But this might be my favorite run that he's on. You mentioned those matches, but I even go back to the Jon Moxley match that he had that set up the BCC, and the stories have been told so beautifully. And it's not even like he's been their champion. Of course, he's challenged for the championship multiple times. He hasn't been the AEW champion, but he doesn't feel lesser than. He still feels like a headliner. And that's such a delicate balance to have. And Tony Khan walks that really well with all these legends. We spoke about Sting on the debate. He does such a good job of honoring the past while keeping an eye towards the future and keeping this whole prestige behind the names that are there. It's well done. I mean, it might just be our AEW brain over here, but it's well done. And I appreciate everything he's doing for Bryan Danielson's career.
Well, dude, even like, we mentioned these big fun dream matches for him. Even the 2 out of 3 falls match he had against Daniel Garcia, he's still putting over young guys 100%. And giving them like, it's the perfect balance right now for him. And talking about Danielson and the creative and getting more input into what he's doing. I don't know if you guys got to check out the presser after Double or Nothing, but he said like him and Tony have very, very similar views on how to book wrestling. And they have phone conversations that go hours where they're just talking about possibilities. And it just seems like we're seeing the most genuine version of who Danielson really is now than we ever have before. And that's coming from someone, dude, I was totally bought into the Yes Movement. I loved Danielson in WWE. I loved him, but this version is my favorite version I've ever seen, because I just feel like he seems so tapped in, so happy, and getting to do what he really wants to do and how he sees himself and how he sees pro wrestling. Danielson is just must see for me. Must see. He's one of the best out right now. And the BCC stuff, you talked about the Mox match, bringing Regal in, like 100%. There's so many things that's tapped into the history of his career that's just fun for a fan. So yeah, Danielson, Okada, Forbidden Door, sign me up.
Yeah, the one side note, they did announce the G1 participants coming up in the summer. Bryan Danielson was originally rumored to be a part of it, but being 3 months away from, or not 3 months, but like almost 2.5 months away from AEW television, it's just not doable. And
we've got time.
We got time. Maybe next year.
We've got time in the future. Maybe next year.
And I'm just looking forward to everything to do in Forbidden Door, and just the open-mindedness to do the things they're doing it speaks volumes to where wrestling's going to go. And there's the
Yeah.
possibilities are endless. We're not stuck in this vacuum of like, it only can happen on these two rosters on Collision or Dynamite. You expand even to Impact. There's guys out there that if they want to wrestle them, Tony Khan will try his damnedest to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting time. It's an exciting time. We keep saying that. And I know people are like, all right, we get it, guys. But it really is like, this is I think the last 2 to 3 years has been my favorite time to be a fan. And it just keeps getting better.
So speaking of coming back from injury, after nearly 3 months out of action, Pac is expected to return soon. So Meltzer reported this in the Observer newsletter. Obviously, he's been away from the ring getting a nose injury fix. We last saw him during the final match of the Best of 7 series against the Elite for the Trios Championship. The quote that Meltzer had about him said, Pac has been out of action due to getting his nose fixed, that he was still wrestling on after he was injured to complete the Best of 7 series. We are told he should be back shortly. So interesting to see if they'll get involved with the Death Triangle, if he's going to be there. Do they push him in a main event capacity? Do they follow your lead and have him challenge MJF at All In? Either way, I mean, we haven't seen him wrestle a lot this year. He's only wrestled twice, not in AEW, but he appeared for OTT Wrestling at their Scrapper Mania weekend, that same event that Kingston and Moxley were supposed to be a part of. If you guys remember, Moxley was very upset that he was unable to be because he had to run that House Rules event that he was pissed about. But
yeah,
anyway, Pac is set to return and can't wait. I mean, perfect timing. We need him at All In. He's a countryman. We want to make sure he's there, getting the love from the fans. Understated talent that people... I think everyone's missing him, but I don't think you realize how much of an impact he can have on the roster when he's back.
I love Pac. I think he's one of the most talented people on the roster, to be honest. Like, he lays his stuff in so tight, and I've heard guys say that he's so safe, but he looks so brutal. That is the perfect balance of a pro wrestler, looking real as can be and being as soft as possible to your opponent. I can't wait to have him back, man. In any capacity, and like you said, you gotta have Pac at All In. He's a UK guy. You gotta have him.
Also returning from injury, potentially Santana. So we got some new report from the Wrestle Observer notes that he's ready to return from his torn ACL soon. Obviously, we know there was some real life distension between him and Ortiz, and obviously they had a private falling out. We don't know all the details. There was also the trios possibility of Santana, Ortiz, and Eddie Kingston that they previously kind of hinted towards. We have not seen Santana wrestle since Blood and Guts, which saw the Blackpool Combat Club, Ortiz and Santana defeating the JAS back on June 29th, 2022. So we're approaching a year since then. He got the torn ACL in that match. He was already teaming with Ortiz less, but there was a picture of them recently that showed them together. Hopefully there's a chance that we'll get the Proud and Powerful potentially having a run, because well-deserving is a tag team championship run with two of these guys, and taking on FTR, that's a money feud that's just waiting for you guys if they can get it together.
I didn't see the picture of them together.
It might have been an old picture, but when they posted the Santana news, it was a picture of the two of them standing next to each other and looked like he was like had a brace on his knee. So I thought it was
man, I hope they clear the air, and I don't want to live in a world where those two guys are beefing. I followed them a long time. Even in Impact, they always seem super tight. I remember watching them on a video back probably a year or two prior to them signing with AEW. They were on Busted Open Radio, and they seemed like brothers, you know? And like you said, man, Santana coming back is great. I love Santana, but something seems wrong about him being in a singles push. I'm not to shit on his hopes and aspirations of doing that, but I know FTR, Dax especially, has always said that was a team they wanted a long program with. They were hoping for a bigger run when the Pinnacle and Inner Circle were feuding. I would love to see a long-term Santana Ortiz FTR feud, and honestly, I would be fully supportive if Santana and Ortiz was the team to take those titles off of FTR. I think that would be incredible. I think it would be, I mean, right now there's no other tag team that's free to feud with FTR that I feel like deserve it more than a reunited Santana Ortiz.
Summer of reconciliation should continue. Hopefully Santana Ortiz get in a room and they can make it work, because LAX, Proud and Powerful, whatever you want to call them, one of the best tag teams of our generation. But we'll continue. Yota Tsuji has joined LIJ, Los Ingobernables de Japan. And interesting enough, and of course we can talk about the implications of it and all that, this happened at a New Japan Pro Wrestling press conference right before Dominion. So they cut the angle at the press conference, which
I love that.
I've never seen something like that. So, anyway, he's part of LIJ. We'll give him a little bit of love there. Rock the banner, similar like how the guys in the Bullet Club do the same. So, they gave him Bushi gave Tsuji an LIJ tee. And after Naito bid Osaka adios, Tsuji promised to, quote, make things interesting around here in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I just thought the way it was done was fascinating because you could have done that on the pay-per-view, but you did it at the press conference, which was unique. I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, I love anytime they shoot angles outside of when we think angles are shot. Like, I think back to when Brody King attacked Darby at a signing, and then they used the camera footage to build that match on Dynamite. Stuff like that, press conference interferences. It's always fun. It's fun seeing LIJ get a new member. I think they're a pretty iconic group. We're seeing that group, it seems like, is getting a little more love on Dynamite. We've got Preston and Dralistico, I believe, are going to be in a big match on Dynamite this coming Wednesday. So,
and Andrade will be back too.
Andrade's coming back. Good times for that faction.
So speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, they issued the following press release announcing its year Fantasticamania joint event with CMLL will be coming to Mexico for the first time ever on June 30th. So this has always been a highlight since 2011 on the New Japan Pro Wrestling calendar. Fantasticamania is going to be heading to Mexico for the very first time. So they announced this on CMLL's Informa broadcast on May 31st. And they said it's going to be CMLL presents New Japan Pro Wrestling Fantasticamania Mexico 2023. And it's the first time since the Fantasticamania tradition began in 2011 that New Japan will head to CMLL's home turf rather than CMLL coming to Japan. It will be the 50th anniversary of Lucha Libre Living Legend Santanico, so they're going to be paying some tribute to him. They have some matches announced, some decent stuff here. Again, just leaving it open there for, I know we talk a lot about as far as the Mexican side, AAA. CMLL deserves a little bit of love as well, with New Japan Pro Wrestling working with them. Nice to see that New Japan has their doors open on both sides, ready and willing to work with CMLL, work with Impact, also work with AEW. This is a cool event that a lot of people probably don't even know it's happening, but we're going to be having El Desperado in action. He'll be taking on Mascara Dorada 2.0. We're going to get LIJ, as was mentioned before, in action. Naito, Bushi, and Titan versus Mystico, Atlantis Jr., and Sobrano Jr., and Rocky Romero versus Volador Jr. for the World Historic Welterweight Championship. Some good action if you guys are looking for more wrestling to consume. Some lucha stuff, some love for CMLL, and it'd be cool to see some New Japan Pro Wrestling talent at the Arena de Mexico. So, be cool.
Yeah, I've always looked at CMLL and AAA as kind of the New Japan, all Japan type of vibe,
and they don't like each other,
right? But you got to give credit to New Japan. I mean, all this talk of Forbidden Door and all of this, like you said, they work with everybody. And I know they've always been, they've always done cross-promotional stuff throughout their history, if you go back and look. But here recently, ever since, I forget his name, but when the president of New Japan stepped down, that leadership that was keeping them from working with AEW, when that happened and he stepped down, they've really went full in on working with everyone. Even WWE was sending people. Who was it? Nakamura? Did he work?
He was with Noah. He was with Noah, but yeah, there's a road there for WWE. It hasn't happened, but I think it's more likely with WWE than it is WWE AEW, because New Japan feels like they're Sweden. They're just in the middle.
I know. It was Carl Anderson.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there was a little bit of a flirting between those two companies, and then obviously Impact, AEW, CMLL. I just think it's, out of any company, I feel like they are the template of what you can do. Like, you can work with a ton of promotions and be successful. And I think it benefits them. One, they're open for business, but two, it shows you kind of, it's a smart business tactic to help them grow. They're trying to get into the States outside of Asia. I feel like their business practices are not only helping them, but they're helping pro wrestling.
Yeah, the silver lining of this pandemic era of New Japan that really damaged them. Like without fans there, they were the last to bring fans back. They're still kind of crawling out from underneath all that weight. But I think that left them a little more open. They've always been open, but they're more so open to working with everybody,
right,
to get their name back out there and have some prominence. And as you mentioned, I think the relationship with AEW benefits New Japan Pro Wrestling more at this point. And I think you would have said the opposite 4 years ago, because New Japan Pro Wrestling they were super popular. Now they're still, like I said, they're almost in a rebuilding phase. We see Sonata as their champion. It's not as must see as it has been, but AEW is making it must see, because you're seeing guys like Claudio and Jon Moxley. Now BRYAN DANIELSON showing up in video packages, and Kenny Omega is going to be back there with Will Ospreay. It's good shit. It's good for everybody. And I just love, like you said, the open door and progressive mindset. We keep saying that, but like if WWE can play their game like this, it would change the world. It would change wrestling at large. But as we said, go back to the title. They're cookie cutter as it comes right now.
Right, right.
So let's go to Kenta here, and he obviously has a public dislike for CM Punk for many years. That they share the finisher. He believes Punk stole the GTS from him, but he did tweet that he's the current New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Openweight Champion. He said, "I'm free on June 17th," leaving it open that he potentially would work a program with CM Punk. If Kenta's willing to do it, why can't anybody else do it? I mean, come on. There's no one's been more critical of CM Punk in a boisterous way than Kenta.
Yeah.
Come on. If he's willing to do it, let's all get on the same page.
I mean, honestly, I think if Punk wants to be on Forbidden Door, that's your match. It's kind of a built-in story.
Match, yeah.
It's a built-in story. You don't need much time to build it. Punk's coming back on the 17th. I believe Forbidden Door is like at the end of the month.
29th,
like that, yeah. I think. Yeah, I think that's perfect, man. Okada's tied up. A lot of people are tied up. I feel like he's not going to get Ospreay. He's not going to get Okada. Kenta, the finishers. Let's go.
The other match that I think we were supposed to see Forbidden Door was him versus Tanahashi. So maybe they go back to that.
Yeah.
Because Moxley was obviously replacing. So that was a whole mess. That Forbidden Door was cursed last year. So hopefully they don't have any of the injuries to worry about. And the card they set out is the card we get in Toronto. But let's go with Rhea Ripley here. She was talking about hoping to expand the Judgment Day. So she was speaking about the pod on a podcast called Battleground.
Yeah, shout out to Battle, Timothy Battle from Battleground Podcast. Been a frequent guest on the debate. Go check them out. They have a lot of good interviews, but he got to chat with Rhea, and we have a clip where she's talking about the new member, possibility of a new member in Judgment Day.
So we're always looking at individuals that might make the cut. They obviously have to prove themselves to us, and they have to want the same things that we want, and understand that no one's in charge, that we're all here in a close-knit unit where we're all supporting each other and wanting the best for everyone in the group. And just wanting to take over the WWE as a whole, but together. So we're always looking at, obviously, the people that are coming up from NXT. We've looked at all the SmackDown superstars, all the Raw superstars. We've tried with AJ before, but he was stubborn. We've tried with Liv before, but he was stubborn. She was stubborn. And then, I'm not sure. We've been looking at a few people. I don't want to give anything away, but we'll see if they make the cut or not.
So Judgment Day was formed back in 2022, as you guys all remember. Edge started it, but they've really come into their own following Edge being booted from them by the new leader, or I guess you can make the case anybody's a leader in this group, by Finn Balor. And now we have Balor, Damian Priest, Rhea Ripley, and of course, our boy Dominic Mysterio. We'll see if they expand. You don't want to go too far and tip it off the other way, but I think maybe one more member might be okay.
Yeah, one more member. If done right, I feel like it's with anything, especially factions, it's always a delicate balance of bringing in new members, how you bring them in, but I'm open to it. And look at what it's done. We were highly critical of Judgment Day when it first started, but I think they found their footing, and it's funny because look at Retribution, man, shit can go wrong with a faction. And I feel like they've stayed the course. and Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley out of the entire group. Those two have really like exploded.
So we talked about Double or Nothing extensively last week. If you want to hear our review on it, go back to our show last week. But AEW Double or Nothing estimate buys. We don't have the official number, but it's a similar buy rate to the company's Revolution pay-per-view from March. Recent estimates from Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter hold that the pay-per-view did between 130,000 to 135,000 buys. Chad, the most interesting thing I keep reading about these buys, numbers aside, is that it's always unique buys. It's not the same fans buying pay-per-views. And I know you listen to Observer Radio and they talk about this. They really can't make heads or tails with the logic of it. But what do you take from that it's a different, unique buyer every time, that the same people are not buying the pay-per-views ritualistically?
It's weird because you would think how the numbers typically are around 130 to 150s, 160s is where they hover. I think last year's Double or Nothing was 155 buys, so they're a little under last year's Double or Nothing. But it is weird because you would think when the numbers are similar that it's the same people just tuning in to buy those pay-per-views. But like Dave has, if you know, he has his critics, but one thing you cannot hate on Dave about, he is tapped into buy rates and stuff like that. Even on UFC, like he's always covered that very well. He's got his inside knowledge. I don't know, man. What is that? Is like it because I know I buy everyone, so I'm definitely in those numbers every time. But there's something to be said that the fan base is maybe bigger than perceived. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we're going to see it play out, and we only have the sample size of a small batch of pay-per-views because they don't have that many in their history. So we'll see if in the future, if they can lock down a core group of, say, 60,000 every time by the pay-per-view and then add on top the casuals, then maybe you're onto something. But if they're not having the same people buy, it's interesting because the diehards are the diehards. Those are the people that are at the event screaming and yelling and all that.
I think if this rumored streaming platform Max brings AEW into the fold and we get kind of a Peacock WWE type of deal with AEW and HBO Max, I think that will increase buys. I think you'll get new fans. I truly believe that because right now you're creating a fan base off of your week-to-week storytelling where you're getting a new person to latch on to what's happening in the here and now, like what they see and follow forward with it. Where if you have a streaming service where people can check it out and tap into the history and see everything's tap into all the big moments that, let's be honest, you got to go searching for them on clips on YouTube to find certain things. There's no hub to relive those moments. Like outside of Bleacher Report having your pay-per-view purchases that you can go back and watch, I think being able to tap into that will bring new people to the table. Just like when the network was launched, there was a lot of lapsed fans who came back to wrestling because of the old content and they started rewatching the product on Monday nights or SmackDown. So I think a streaming platform, they're in a really good spot right now. And I know a lot of people want to be critical of AEW, and not to go on and on about this, but they have some very important things that I think will grow this base much more. And you're going to see it. One is, I think, a possible streaming platform, but the big one that no one's really thinking about, that video game is going to bring fans. I know a lot of people that started watching wrestling because they were playing the video games back in the day, and it got them to watch the product.
Very good point. And there's a few wrestlers that I talked to with Remarkable and otherwise that I asked them their origins of wrestling. And I think it was Jack Tomlinson on here, and he was saying his introduction, he didn't know wrestling existed outside of the video game. And then when he found out it existed, it blew his mind. You're going to have a subsect of fans that will just play the game. And especially with the retro nature of it being like WWF No Mercy from N64.
It looks fun, man.
Looks fun. I mean, it seems like it's easy to pick up and play, which is all I can ask for. And I know that some people are going to be critical that the graphics don't look real life or whatever, but that's not for me anyway.
That's not for me. I bought 2K, the 2K series. I'm not a gamer like most people, and it was too involved. I just want a button smash.
Yeah, agreed. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with the AEW streaming service. And Colton and I had a good conversation about the Freevee stuff going on with Tubi and Roku about Ring of Honor, because Tony Khan is tapped into that. And we know he's an analytic guy, but the future of TV and revenue streams, it's going to change in the coming future. And if you follow, as we mentioned, Pat McAfee as a barometer of they're turning free content and using the ad and the guaranteed money on top of it. WWE was a market leader as well. We saw them change the game. They took a risk on the getting rid of the pay-per-view model because that was where their bread was buttered, and they completely changed it. And a lot of different sporting leagues and everything else followed suit. So I think in time, we're going to see completely change. This WBD deal for AEW could change exactly what they're doing, where they don't have to rely heavily on people paying $50 for a pay-per-view, $49.99 or $39.99, whatever it winds up being. They are going to be reliant on the guaranteed money, ad-driven revenue, and then getting people to consume their product in different ways. Because you bring eyes to the product. To me, it's more valuable to have 500,000 people consume your product at a cheaper rate, maybe even for free, than it is for people to buy 135,000 buys. I don't know if you agree with that, but I just think having more people consuming your product is a gateway, because you're casting a wider net to capture people that may be interested in what you're doing.
No, I agree with that. Or they double dip and go the route of Dana White and the UFC, and they offer the streaming platform for cheap. $5 to $10, whatever the HBO thing is going to be. I think $10.
Yeah.
You pay that, and then you still have your pay-per-views. And with UFC, they've been killing it through ESPN Plus, where you get all the back catalog through ESPN Plus, but you have to pay for the pay-per-views. And they're giving you, I think, like 10 to 12 pay-per-views a year, where it's a sweeter deal from an AEW standpoint for a fan, that you only have to buy 4 to 5 pay-per-views. And so they could double dip and do that, or they could go the route of Peacock, where you're just paying that lump sum and you get the free pay-per-views. I think for them, they're a young company where I think they need to stick it out with the pay-per-views for a minute. They're not getting to, however many fans they can get to sign up for this streaming service. I don't think they're to the point now where they can throw pay-per-view out, because that pay-per-view model, it's successful for them right now.
Yeah. I mean, outside of WWE, every wrestling company that was big have utilized it, and we'll see what happens down the future, but we know Tony Khan has his finger on the pulse of everything going on, and where they go is where they go. But WBD, their money, that money and guaranteed for 4 years is going to be huge to let them rest comfortably knowing there's going to be an income if some of the pay-per-view structure changes. But
absolutely,
we'll continue to have you guys covered on that. Speaking of pay-per-view, one of the most memorable moments from the last pay-per-view, Matt Jackson had to obtain a special license in order to deliver the exploding super kick to Jon Moxley. So we saw that obviously during Anarchy in the Arena. We'll talk extensively about that during Dave's Raves. Moxley had Nick Jackson in the single leg crab. There goes Matt hitting with the super kick. It exploded. Absolutely awesome. The quote from Meltzer said, Matt Jackson came up with the exploding super kick spot a month ago. He wanted to do something that hadn't been done to do, so he had to get a Nevada State fire performer's license at other entertainment acts in Las Vegas, using things like that as part of the show to get over. Man, fucking amazing. Awesome. I thought it paid off too, because you run the risk of doing something like that, being dissuaded because of everything that happened with the Moxley and Kenny Omega exploding barbed wire match. Yeah. This paid off, man. If they had an explosion like this happening during that match, everyone would have had their mouths shut, because no one has said anything critical about this except, the Colt Cornette saying it's not wrestling, whatever. But as far as like optically, it looked like
it was awesome.
His face off. It was fucking awesome.
It was awesome. When it happened, me and Steve were like, holy shit, what happened? And I think, like Meltzer said that he came up with this about a month ago, which I'm sure he did, but I think the nugget of this came at All Out 2021, when the cage match against the Lucha Brothers, when they had the shoe with the tacks on it. Because I remember, I don't know if it was on Being the Elite or an interview with Matt Jackson, but he was talking about coming up with the tacks on the shoe, and he was like, maybe one day in the future we'll have a flaming shoe. like a shoe on fire, but we haven't figured out how to do it. Now, I know this wasn't a flaming shoe. This was an exploding shoe, but I remembered him saying that. And I'm like, I think that's what put this in his head. It's been in there. So very cool.
Maybe they would have done it, but Janela burned his whole foot off during the GCW event. So like, I don't want to touch it. So let's do a firework shoe, which
yeah, yeah, much
very
safer.
awesome. So in the news too, we also finally got the announcement of Ring of Honor returning the pay-per-view. It's going to be Friday, July 21st in Trenton, New Jersey at the Cure Insurance Arena for Death Before Dishonor. We've been talking about this on Honor Society, trying to figure out when they're going to be doing this. We've been in a pattern of the stagnancy as far as storytelling goes in ROH, to building up new faces and having people kind of pay off things on their weekly TV. If you're not following Ring of Honor, please check us out on Honor Society for all your news of ROH. But yeah, they're going to be doing this, and I'm sure we're going to see some build up until this week. They have not taped the spoilers for this week. We're going to see it on Wednesday and air at the night after. So we'll see what's the main program for Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor. Claudio needs a challenger. We need to figure out where they're going with Samoa Joe. They've been teasing the Zack Sabre Jr. feud on TV. But for pay-per-view, they have not disappointed on the ROH side.
No, and I think it's good. It's good to know where you're going, because usually when we have a pay-per-view, it ramps up the booking. They have a destination to get to. So I think it's good too that they're kind of running. It's a busy summer. It's a crowded summer as far as big events. So I was wondering where this was going to land. Having a July event, to break up the end of June Forbidden Door, and then all the shenanigans happening at All In, All Out, SummerSlam, all of that. Like, I think this is good.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we're going to keep you up to date on everything ROH on Honor Society. But moving on with another event happening this summer for Money in the Bank, we got the first two qualifiers happening. LA Knight on the men's side, Zelina Vega on the women's side. So we saw both of them qualify on SmackDown, we had Zelina Vega defeating Lacey Evans with the code red. And we had LA Knight defeating Montez Ford to qualify. Knight reversed a pin using the ropes for levers, so he cheated to win. We get more qualifying matches we'll cover for Monday on Raw, with Ricochet and Shinsuke Nakamura becoming the first to qualify for the men's match. And qualifiers that will take place on next week's SmackDown will be Butch versus Baron Corbin, Santos Escobar versus Mustafa Ali, Mishin versus Bailey, and Shotzi versus Io Sky. Of course, we know Money in the Bank will be WWE emanating from London, England, the O2 Arena on July 1st. So again, adding to the plethora of summer events we have, and we know that crowd's going to be hot.
Yeah, I think, man, LA Knight, lock it up. I know he was just announced, but I think that's the guy that's got to get that briefcase.
They've been trying. It feels like they're trying to put out the fire of this, because they were piping in booze too. I heard at the press conference for the Saudi show. I don't know what they're trying to do here, but he's organically over. So just let it happen.
Yeah, let it happen. They probably have plans of him being a heel to face Cody down the road, and they want to start. I don't know. He's over, man. Let him get over.
Well, this is what we've been talking about on Shot Nostalgia, where back in that time, because it was all based on ratings, they would just very much pivot when they needed, because there was an emphasis on how do we get people to watch, what's popping them, what's making them react. Now it's the complete opposite. And you can make the argument that it's worked better for them because it's been driven and their revenue has been more. But as far as meaningful television, the most organic characters have been developed in times where you react accordingly. And LA Knight right now seems like he's on the up and up, where just because you didn't intend him to be a guy you built around doesn't mean you shy away from it. If they had that mindset back in 97 with Stone Cold, they would have never had Stone Cold become Stone Cold. And you kind of have to, there's a delicate balance. You don't want to pivot too much and zig and zag, but you have to veer off the path for a sec just to at least explore what could possibly be with LA Knight. Maybe it's a fruitless effort. Maybe they're absolutely right that he's not going to be a main guy, but maybe he is. And you have another prominent star that you can actually put some stock in.
Yeah. I like wrestling where you follow the path that the audience leads you on. Obviously the audience isn't booking the show. You have to have a direction, but if someone's getting over and you're just ignoring the response because you have a plan in place, I don't know how good that is. Obviously the Bloodline, they've had a direction, they've crushed it, but even in that, there were pivots. I feel like a little bit, I think Sammy came in and they pivoted a little bit towards Sammy. we need a little bit of that in the entire card. Like LA Knight, man, pivot. Like the fans love him. Lean into that.
So we have Impact Slammiversary coming up soon, and that's going to be July 15th in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And we have the first match announced. It will be for the Knockouts Championship. Deonna Purrazzo versus Trinity. Of course, we know Trinity has debuted in Impact. It was a big deal. It was one of our main stories here. She's a former 2-time WWE SmackDown Women's Champion, and she's going to be looking for her first taste in Impact Gold. And right now, Purrazzo's in the midst of her third reign as Knockouts Champion. This is the biggest event of Impact's calendar. So this is a big event that they're announcing, and we're going to get a lot of build up for this. This was shown on the last week's Impact, where following her win over Savannah Evans, Trinity called out Purrazzo. She came out to the ring and very simply said, "Let's dance." So we're going to get a few months build for this. Looking forward to it. Seems like Trinity is going to get the crown as far as the women's division goes, and well deserved. I mean, she's the bell cow that should be there as far as carrying the load.
Yes, and we talked about this earlier before we went live on the show. We were talking about what we love about Impact and how they slowly have one of the best rosters. It's deceptively good roster, like it top to bottom. And one of their strengths is taking underutilized talent from WWE and giving them the ball to kind of become the people that fans thought they could be in WWE, but they weren't given the shot. And this is a case in point situation where people called for Trinity to beat Naomi in WWE, called for her to be bigger, a bigger threat, a bigger presence in that women's division. She never really got it. I mean, they flirted with it here and there, but I thought she could have been a top lady in that division. And I think here she's getting the opportunity. I would be shocked if she doesn't take home the gold at Slammiversary. I think that's predictability in wrestling is sometimes a good thing. I think that's a great thing. And yeah, man, I'm loving that they announced it now.
Yeah.
Because Purrazzo has been on a tear. She's crushing it in Impact. And we get to see the story play out. And it's going to be fun.
So speaking of predictability, this is unpredictable. Billy Corgan resisted taking outside money to help the National Wrestling Alliance prosper. And he says he wants to find a TV partner for NWA, but wants to ensure it's the right fit. He was speaking about this with the Toronto Sun, and he said, I quote, "I think it's always been the most obvious elephant in the room to land some sort of TV broadcast partner that will allow us to continue to grow and reach a bigger audience. We've been with YouTube, then we were behind a paywall with Fight." So Billy Corgan's been in the news. He's been a little bit volatile and defending the Tyrus NWA stuff. There's been some positive light on NWA with this Crockett Cup at this point where people are interested in that. But for the most part, the air is out of the balloon with NWA, and Billy Corgan seems like he's a little bit out of touch. And I know that's not really fair to say always, but looking at as far as his fans go, clearly they're upset with the way things are being booked. And if you're resisting taking outside money and he wants to be 100% self-funded, it's almost like you're setting yourself up for failure if someone wants to help.
Yeah, I see. He said, I've resisted taking any outside money. So it's 100% self-funded. So that way, if I do find the right partner, I don't have to bring somebody else along and convince them that it's a good idea. And then secondarily, I resisted taking C-level deals just to sort of puff out my chest and say, see, I'm with blah, blah, blah network. I think he's kind of playing it smart, though, in a way where you don't want to just take money and then someone takes control of your company. And we've seen with, networks get highly involved. It can be bad. So I see his point a little bit, but at the same time, like, if you're wanting to elevate the company, you do have to be open to things. And I think he is, but it's a tricky situation because there's not a lot of people out there. There's not look, WWE and AEW are really the only two people with big TV deals. You've got Impact, who's on Access. It's not offered in a lot of homes. I don't know. It's tricky, man. You don't want to take a bad deal, but you want to be open to deals. So I think Billy's just he has the money to play at the level he's at, and he's hesitant to take that next step because he doesn't want to lose control. I see the merit in that, but at the same time, I think maybe sometimes that ideology holds you back from growing.
Yeah, and before we move on from it, he's comparing himself to the Endeavor deal with WWE and Warner Brothers with AEW. You're not on that level. So if you're waiting
No.
for a deal to come in like that, you kind of have to accept what comes your way to get people to watch your product. And if they're not watching your product, they're not consuming anything, they're not buying merch, they're not attending, and there's no buzz. So if you're waiting for a WWE level deal, it's just not coming. And that seems, like I said, out of touch. So maybe he has his finger to the pulse a little bit better, ear to the ground of something coming down the line. But if there's something out there for him guaranteed to have their more eyes on the product, not just YouTube, you kind of have to take it.
Yeah, and maybe he's just talking about the WWE. I think if he's waiting around for an Endeavor deal or a WBD deal, this dude is fucking delusional.
Well, he's just saying the market doesn't seem crazy. Like I don't think he wants the exact level of money, but I think right now, as you mentioned, AEW and WWE are in their own stratosphere, like not even comparable to any other wrestling company.
No.
It's just, again, Impact. Follow the model of Impact. Just stay in your lane, brother.
Even MLW, like
Right.
I feel like MLW is moving and shaking. Impact's got their little thing going. He's got to pull some triggers. He's got to do something because the YouTube. I like the YouTube deal for them more than the fight deal. The only problem with that is, if you're wanting to grow the company, the YouTube deal isn't bringing in a monetary surplus where you can expand your roster, go after talent. I feel like right now, at the level they're at, they are going to fall in line of someone who is a feeder system to the bigger leagues. The guys who you can afford, who come in, they make a name for themselves and they go off. We saw that with Eli Drake into LA Knight. We saw it with Ricky Starks. We saw it with Zicky Dice going off to Impact. Even Nick Aldis has left to go to Impact. So you want to be perceived a certain way, but if you stay at the level you're at, you'll always be a feeder system, guys jumping to the next levels. That's just the way it is.
Speaking of someone who used NWA to get to the next level, we had Ricky Starks, and he was talking about this a whole bunch of stuff on the Corner podcast. Most specifically, the thing that caught some buzz was talk about the pillars in AEW. And not take on this. I know we have a video.
But I loathe the idea of a pillar because, one, it's a full gimmick and it came from one guy. Yep. There's nothing behind it. You get what I'm saying? To say that these four dudes are the pillar of the company, you know what you're doing by saying that? F everybody else who did anything. Those people don't matter. It's these three guys that we deemed. I have bestowed this sacred title upon thee, and I want you to go forth and do with it. No, I don't believe in that. It's a very sweet gesture to say Ricky should be considered a fifth pillar. Baby, I don't need to be a pillar, okay? I can be a foundation. I can be the roof. I can be the person outside maintaining the lawn. I don't need none of that. Because to me, that's a box within itself. 4 pillars, you got me. What? 4 pillars? 4 pillars are what? So to say that these 4 guys are the ones that are going to make and break, let's see the numbers. Y'all want to talk about ratings? Let's see the ratings for y'all 4, huh? Let's see how much money y'all making. If y'all want to keep bringing up all this bullshit, let's see it. Pen to paper. How are the quarterly hours doing when y'all are on TV? Let's see it. I want to see it. The 4 pillars, hell yeah. My paycheck is signed by those 4 dudes. Hell yeah. Let me see.
What do you think about this, Ace? Like, obviously there's merit in it, but there's a part of me, it's like, dude, it's a gimmick. You know what I mean? Like,
Agreed.
It's not that serious. Like, it's not like I feel like I always looked at the 4 pillars as kind of just like a promotable gimmick for the company.
I've always thought the same thing, and I never really thought about how other people would perceive it. I just looked at it as, I don't know, like just one of those things that they just put on a t-shirt and it just became a storyline where you could see, if you start pulling the thread of, people probably feel a certain type of way as being considered franchise players while other people are there. As we mentioned before, Ricky Starks wasn't part of the original AEW roster, and that's not his fault. He was doing things, and maybe he's better for it. And maybe at the end of the day, he'll be way ahead of some of these guys, not MJF, but maybe he'll be ahead of Jungle Boy down the line, and we'll remember him more fondly. Maybe he'll hold the world championship before Jungle Boy. That being said, I feel like he's sort of working as well. Like, I think it's like one of those convoluted things where he's working, he's talking about something that would make Ricky Starks, the character, upset. But I thought it was interesting. And what I really pulled from this, aside from what he was saying, is just how charismatic and well-spoken he is, and just how much charisma exudes him when he's even just having a casual conversation on a podcast. Guy has it all. I love him. I think he, this program at Bull Club with Jay White and Juice Robinson feels mid-card, as we mentioned before, but I'm glad he's doing something.
It could pick up steam, though. I think with FTR getting involved, I think this could help Ricky. And him being in a feud with Jay White, dude,
it's a big deal. Yeah,
that's a big deal. That's a big deal, especially to a lot of fans that are maybe more so New Japan guys, and they're seeing, oh shit, who's this guy with Jay, with Switchblade? I love the bravado that he brings, even if he's semi shooting, semi working here. Like, I think it's great. And my thing with the Four Pillars, if there's any man to make a complaint about the Four Pillars stuff, it's Orange Cassidy. He's there at the beginning with those four dudes, and he's not mentioned in that talk. And he's arguably in the best run of anyone right now in AEW. But I love Ricky Starks. I love that he plays into this stuff.
Tied into Orange Cassidy, I think eventually Ricky Starks should take that international championship and have him run with it, because I think he's well suited for it.
Yeah,
because he deserves to be recognized and have meaningful programs. And I know this Juice Robinson and Jay White thing will have a payoff, but I think Ricky Starks, if we look at what he can do, the promo head-to-head with MJF and that mini feud over the Dynamite Diamond Ring and the title and all that stuff that happened in Texas for Winter is Coming, it showed a peak that he could do the things that you want him to do. And yeah, I think he has a chance to do so in the future, pillar or not, whether he's tending to the lawn or being the roof of the building, as he said.
Yeah.
I think he has a huge piece of AEW's future, and they'd be foolish not to have him be a part of it.
I agree.
So we also have former WWE wrestler Timothy Thatcher returning to MLW. Of course, you mentioned Thatcher being involved in AEW television, but a return date has been set for him in MLW. The company announced via Twitter that Thatcher will return for the first time since 2019, appearing at the show Never Say Never on July 8th. We, of course, saw him in 2019, where he's competing in the Opera Cup. He had matches against the likes of Low Key, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Tom Lawler. As we saw, Thatcher was involved in 2020, 2021 with NXT. And then, of course, we talked about his competition in Pro Wrestling Noah. And then, of course, the match with BRYAN DANIELSON that most people remember. He's a former Evolve champion. He currently holds the GHC Tag Team Championship with Saxon Hurley and Noah. We're going to get this from the old ECW arena. Never Say Never. Of course, MLW has been on our docket as far as news cycles go, and it's not just the court stuff with Court Bauer and WWE.
Right.
Timothy Thatcher is a guy he has a presence, man, and clearly, I think he can make a difference on their roster.
Yeah, I hope it's not just a one-off with Never Say Never. I hope they kind of lock him in. He seems like MLW material, man. And with them, there's the rumors Jacob Fatu could be looking for a way out to go to WWE and join that Bloodline story. I believe they may be losing the Von Erichs, who are free agents right now. And if I was AEW,
100%.
Scoop the Von Erichs up. So adding Timothy Thatcher to your MLW experience, I think, is a good thing.
We also have Moose for Impact Wrestling. His contract is set to expire this month. So Fightful reported that a few weeks ago, Moose's contract with Impact was set to expire later this month. He's going to be hitting free agency in the summer of 2021. At the time, in summer 2021, he signed an extension. They agreed to, quote, a lucrative extension, and he was pushed as one of the company's top stars. Remember, he feuded with Cody Rhodes when Cody Rhodes came into Impact.
Had the match against Omega.
Yeah, of course. Do you think Moose would be someone well suited to leave, or do you think he should stay within the Impact ecosystem because he wouldn't be featured as prominently elsewhere?
If I was him, I would stick around with Impact. I feel like Impact's heating up. They've built him where he's a guy. He's one of their guys, man. He has history. That's where it's kind of like when Edge re-signed with WWE for his return at the Rumble. Like AEW was courting him. He had meetings and stuff, but that's where his history was. Me, selfishly as a fan, I would like Moose to stick around. I think Impact is low-key killing it, but if WWE comes calling with a big money contract that Impact can't offer, a guy like Moose, I think every wrestler at some point has dreams of being on the big show, quote unquote, the WrestleMania type thing. I wouldn't fault him for it. I just don't think he's going to be featured in a capacity that he would be in Impact. There's always a fear as a fan, and I'm sure wrestlers have the fear as well. When you go to that company, you get lost in the shuffle sometimes. Like, unless they truly see something and they rocket you to the top, I think they've had their opportunities to sign Moose, and they've always kind of dragged their feet on it. So I would be leery of going to that company, even for a large amount of money, because you don't know where you're going to land on the roster.
I guess it's a philosophy question. Are you rather be a high mid carder in WWE or be a main eventer in Impact? And there's no right answer to it, but
right.
That's essentially the choice he has to make, because barring something changing with the hierarchy of who's at the top of the card WWE, that's not changing anytime soon. So we also have AEW becoming more aggressive in completing the contracts with the Elite. This has been a conversation that's been under the surface because of the fact everything going on with getting Punk back in the room and the return of, the Young Bucks from injury, returning, all that stuff, and being involved in the big match, Double or Nothing. But according to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, AEW is becoming more aggressive in attempting to sort the contracts of the Bucks and Omega, as it's become abundantly clear that TK wants to retain all three of them. So we know that their situation right now, executive vice presidents, they originally signed multi-year deals with AEW when it was formed back in 2019. WWE clearly had interest in them. If it wasn't just to keep AEW from prospering, they did have interest in their talents. And the Young Bucks have extended their contracts once, but the pact will run out next year. Omega's contract is up sometime later this year. Man, I feel like it's a foregone conclusion that they'll be there, but the fact that they haven't signed yet is troubling. I wouldn't say it's at a scale of 1 to 10. I've put it at like a 4 as far as troubling goes, but there's no guarantee. We saw Cody leave, and I understand All Elite Wrestling has the word elite in it, and it'd be bizarre without them there, but we mentioned before, if they leave, it's not going to sink the ship, and maybe that's what they were trying to accomplish. And they maybe talk about Moose going over to WWE. Maybe they want to show what they can do and prove people wrong, and maybe they're not happy with the direction of the company with the Punk stuff. Who knows? But a lot of this has to be sorted out soon, because I think Cody Rhodes paved that path, and they could easily just veer down. It's getting well trimmed, and it's been manicured as far as the bushes. They're not walking through uncharted territory. They could do it.
There's always the could. I just don't buy it. I think the only reason they haven't re-signed, I don't think, like you alluded to, I think AEW has been caught up with all this Punk shit, sorting this out. I don't think there has been an emphasis on let's get this done. I think, the Observer, it's getting more aggressive now. I feel like now they're really going to try and lock it in. I think it's kind of been like, oh, we need to get that done, but they haven't really sat down and tried. I don't see a world. This goes beyond just signing a contract to me and taking the bigger money. And just, if you followed the Bucks prior to even AEW, especially the Bucks, their mentality and the from being the Elite, just their attitude and their business philosophy and what they view as wrestling, I think they hold paving a new path for wrestlers as more important than them going and proving everyone wrong that they can do it in WWE. Because let's be honest, if they go to WWE, they're all big family men. They have a lot of children. I think they're going to, that holds onus over them of this revolution, what they started. This was theirs, man. This came from even more than Cody. And Cody, yeah, he paved the path, but Cody also had a tie to that company. You know what I mean? I feel like he had unfinished business. I don't feel like the Bucks feel that they have to go to WWE for their legacy's sake. I think I think their legacy's sake is AEW. I don't think them going to prove some sort of thing in WrestleMania. I don't feel like they need that. I truly don't. And I would be shocked. I don't think Kenny goes either, man. I really think the Elite, especially, you start Collision and then you lose those three. Wow. Big hit.
Yeah, I think also it's not as foregone conclusion that they're going to stay because of this Punk situation. And who knows? Maybe all sewn up and everything's good. But
that's true.
If they feel a certain type of way, and like you look at this as like I look in my mind like a fish tank, and the water's toxic, and you can't be there, and it's not the same place that you used to be and that you started. Maybe the writing's on the wall that they want out, because clearly the intention is to keep Punk, and it's the right business decision. But is it the right thing for the harmony in the locker room? And who knows? We don't know the answer to that, but maybe the Bucks and Kenny Omega feel a certain type of way, whether they're right or wrong. They might be like, all right, if Tony Khan's putting his eggs in this basket, it's not the company that we started back in 2019. This is not the place we want to be. And I think grass is always greener type of thing. And I think they'd have to really make some exceptions about how they're presented on the WWE side. But similar to Cody, I think presentation, if they can guarantee they get the whole production, the whole presentation exactly how it was here, everything,
man,
maybe it makes them a little bit more
palatable. I would be real fucking
side.
Leery of going to that company, man.
100% agree.
I would be. I do not trust that shit. I think the way they work, I'm not even thinking about their presentation. Like, yeah, they give them the money falling from the sky, the confetti cannons, like all of that. Yeah, we'll give you that. We'll give you your music. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, and if I was the Bucks, like, you're not going to wrestle the way you wrestle now over there. It will not happen. They will not let them wrestle that way.
100%. They won't.
It'll be dumbed down. It will be dumbed down. I do not want to see that. Like, and I don't care about an Usos Bucks match, because a Bucks Usos match in WWE is not going to be what I have in my head if it happened on the independents.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to see Kenny Omega the way we love Kenny in New Japan and AEW, and the way he wrestles. Everything over there get the rough edges get buffed out, and I don't want to see that. I don't.
Maybe that's what the talent wants, though. Like, that's what, we saw AJ
That's
Styles.
True.
He's
true.
resting lofty on top of a pile of money, not taking the same bumps and risks he was. And maybe we don't know what their aspirations are. Maybe in both their heads, they always pictured being at WrestleMania and to prove all the doubters wrong. And it might be the biggest push of their life that they have to do it right now. But I agree. I don't think they're going to do it, but there's more of a chance now than ever, now that Punk is guaranteed to be back. And if things go awry and Punk is there, guaranteed money, and Tony Khan's not going to make a decision, maybe the three of them make a decision and say, fuck it, we're out. So,
well, all the guys in the tavern, all the fans, anyone that watches our shows, like, go ahead and put me on suicide watch if they go to WWE. Because I do not want to see the Elite in the world of Stamford, Connecticut, and the way I'm not hating on WWE. Dude, I like the way WWE does their things their way. I just don't want to see that with them.
I'm with you, dude, but I'm just, I'm
scared. You're scaring me, Ace.
I can read sort of, I don't know. I could see the path more so than ever. Like I said, it's been bushwhacked as a path. Someone can hike through it now. So,
I mean, Cody set the stage for that. And I think that Cody doing that gives you and people that think it's a possibility way more ammo. And I see it too, man. Like, no one would have guessed Cody Rhodes I wouldn't have. I mean, he was the guy out front. He was essentially the face of the movement, and he left. The only difference, not to say it again, I feel like it did make, once it happened and the initial shock of it, it did make sense to me. There is unfinished business there. His family has ties with it. He's a Rhodes. His father made a career out of, once he kind of exhausted the territory, he's off to a new territory. It's in his blood. He always wanted to be that Mania main eventer. AEW gave him the platform to get himself to a point where he could be that guy. They offered him the table. Honestly, that never would have happened if AEW didn't exist. He never would have got that offer doing what he did in New Japan and Impact and all the ROH, AEW. This was giving him the platform, but it was also a strategic business move of hurting the competition by taking him away from All Elite Wrestling. And that's what this Elite signing would be too. But I truly think at the end of the day, Cody will be back in AEW. I really do. When he exhausts the territory and has his run, I think he'll be back. I really do.
Yeah. No, we'll see what happens down the line. Like I said, I would probably put percentage-wise 85-15, that they stay, but
that's a good percentage.
There's a fucking chance. Like
there's always
more of a chance than I would want as far as my fandom leans. I don't think we're going to get the best Elite in Kenny Omega. We would get the watered down version that we have. I love AJ, but that's the AJ style. But initially when AJ came in, AJ was on fire. So maybe they put
and you got to look at I look at beyond just the in-ring. They have stroke in this company. They're not going to get any of that type of level of stuff in WWE. Kenny especially he's in his prime, but he's on the back half of his prime, I think, like where he has to start thinking about life beyond the ring early on. It's like, do you want to give up that type of stroke to go to a company where they're not going to take care of you outside of just what you give to the company in the ring? You're not getting an executive job. You're not getting a job working with WWE 2K. He's got a lot of hats he's wearing for AEW from the video game and all of that. I don't think he gives all that up just to go play in the sandbox in Stanford.
We will see what happens. But speaking of AEW,
this is like FTR all over again when we were debating the FTR signing.
You're right. So Chad gets the one in the corner right there. We'll put the circle right there. We'll see. I'm not rooting for it though. So I want to be wrong.
And you're right. You're totally right. It very well could happen. And there's a higher percentage of it happening than I am happy with, but you're totally right.
So Cage Match, obviously, if you guys use Cage Match, it's a great database of every type of wrestling. Acefield Retro is on there as well because I made my wrestling debut at Remarkable Rumble. So I have one match. I'm 0-1. I did not, I came in the ring, left, but whatever. Anyway, Cage Match, they have a match rating system. And just like everywhere in wrestling, social media and every place where a fan can have discourse, tribalism has reared its head as far as keeping the accuracy of these ratings. So over the last 22 years, Cage Match has been the most popular source for wrestling fans to access information, results, statistics, all that stuff going on there. But last year, Philip Creekenbottom, who was one of the Cage Match founders, he had a big concern about the disruption of the database's rating system because he said some fans will submit a 0 or 1 rating after every AEW or WWE pay-per-view, depending on what side of the fence they lean on. Right now, the issue has been sort of corrected, but the larger one remains. I mean, we have to figure out a way that the rating system can have an accurate depiction and not have people that are just there to bomb a rating or a wrestler they don't like. That was never really considered when this thing was conjured up. It was always just a source for people to have an accurate depiction. And there's a spot for your opinion, but for matches to be accurately depicted, I think it's going to have to be something like you have to have a credential to submit a rating. I mean, that might be what they have to do.
I think so. I think I like that they're trying to curb this because you don't want the online fan base to start manipulating the rating system of Cage Matches. I go there all the time just to see like what companies people have worked for. It's essentially to wrestling what IMDb is for movies. Like if you want to find a match, if you want to find a wrestler, a faction they've been a part of, everything's there. It's a great source. So I like that the co-founders are combating the tribalism. I just, like you said, Ace, outside of having to kind of apply for a credentialed account on the site where you're reputable to rate matches, I think you're going to get a lot of those people that go in there just to disrupt the system.
Yeah, there's no easy way to fix it because this is always was a fan-sourced type of website where you would have just the information that was fans' opinions. And never maybe if we had the internet during the height of the Attitude Era where it was like you had Twitter and this resource for WWF versus WCW. But even then, I don't think there was this level of tribalism where people would be so one-sided, like not seeing either side. There was always relatively level-headedness of the conversation. Now some more than ever on both sides. I'm not saying on the WWE side or AEW side. There's people on both sides, even in our comments. You know, I post something, you post something on Turnbuckle Tavern.
Oh yeah.
And the comments are just insane.
Yeah.
With people that are living and dying by 3 letters and their brand that they think is their team. And it's fascinating to me. And I don't think it's a good thing.
And I think wrestling is just a microcosm of society.
Yes.
Tribalism is rampant in just the world right now, picking sides. Everyone wants their team to cheer for. So how about just have a good time, guys? How about just like what you like?
So WWE's adding a clause that will affect AEW's deals with venues in the future. And we've seen this happen in the past, and Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling running MSG. That's why it was such a big deal prior to AEW when that happened, because they would try that. And this was happening in WCW as well during that time, where they would put a hold or a freeze on the next time WWF would come back to their arena. But according to the newsletter, WWE has put clauses in its arena agreements where AEW will not be able to hold a show at the same building for several weeks before or after WWE events. AEW will not be allowed to announce a venue or sell tickets until WWE has held a show at the same location. I wonder if the arenas are going to play ball with them here. As I mentioned before, the MSG thing, but there's also been other things happening throughout the history of wrestling that shows WWE trying to control the market and cut out their knees as far as other competition goes and keep people from running. This is why they're not able to run different places, because you'll have Vince McMahon or whoever say, if you have this company, that's why WCW was never allowed to run MSG. They had the money to do it. They just couldn't do it because they felt like they had an exclusive deal. And if they didn't have WWF in their corner, they were like, well, I'm not going to risk that. They're our money maker. We know that we can make money with them. We're not going to take a risk on a new company, man. So we saw it happen in the ROH New Japan thing that, people don't really talk about the importance of that show as far as creating AEW and having just the presence of a different market for wrestling fans to be on a big stage. But this is pretty crazy to me. Like, grow up, guys. What are we doing? Like, you don't have confidence in the product you guys are doing. You're killing it. You're the most profitable you've ever been, and you're trying to cut out the competition. The reason why you guys are so profitable is because AEW exists. It just it's a raising tide, lift every ship up, and WWE is profiting from it. So I don't know. This is his business as usual on the WWE side.
Yeah, and but I think they look at business tactics like this as the reason to their success. The fact that they're blocking out people from growing. They fear that if they don't do this, another company could gain ground or whatever you want to say. I mean, look, I'm fine. I think some venues obviously are going to play ball. And I think some venues are like, no, that takes money out of our pocket because you're not here that often. Why? If a venue can gain money on both ends, I would say that's smart. And it's not like they're just putting clauses in to prevent them from running close. But at the same time, like the MSG situation, when Raphael Morphy was on Jericho's podcast, he kind of alluded to the whole reason Arthur Ashe happened was the MSG situation. One, like WWE kind of having a lock on it, but Raphael Morphy pitched that to Vince when he was at WWE. They were like, how about we do Arthur Ashe? And they thought it was a dumb idea. And he kind of re-pitched the idea when he started working for AEW, and they loved the idea. And they're content now for that to be their New York City home. And I think that's fun to see people kind of latch on. Would it be cool to see AEW in the Garden? Obviously. And I think one day we probably will. But I don't know. This is all part of the big corporate battle between these America's two biggest companies in pro wrestling.
Yeah, and I don't have an issue with them not running MSG. It's just the fact that they can't. Like, that's the annoying part to me.
Yeah, that's annoying.
You as a wrestling promotion are telling, first of all, it's not your home. Really,
right.
It's not your home anymore. It's the home of the Rangers. It's the home of the Knicks. It's the home of the NCAA tournament at times. It's the home of a lot of other things. You don't have
Barclays kind of their home now.
Yeah. And they haven't really even run MSG consistently outside of house shows in a while. Obviously, the home of WrestleMania 1, 10, and 20 were there. Some big events, SummerSlam 98, Survivor Series 02. There's been a lot of big moments there. But for you to say to an arena and put clauses in your arena is just, to me, it's a troubling monopoly tactic that should be long gone. This was something that, with AEW existing, I understand it's something they want to put in place. Whether the arenas play ball or not, that's going to be a real barometer of the value that other people see of AEW, where some of these arenas, you could put the clause in, but they'll be like, nah, fuck you. I want to make sure I have access to every entertainment value that can pay the rent and keep the lights on here at MSG. The exorbitant amount of money it takes to even turn the lights on there makes it not even probably profitable for Tony Khan to even do it outside of saying I did it, So
Yeah.
it's probably not the most fiduciary, smart move to be doing, but it's probably just like, you know what, a little notch in my belt, I get to do it, and this is the home of WWE and I get to do it here, and that's probably why they're doing such things like this.
I mean, dude, this is the tactics that Court Bauer and MLW are basing their entire lawsuit on.
Yeah,
shit like this. So yeah.
So final news in the quick hitters here. I have Evan Husney. He's the co-creator of Dark Side of the Ring. We saw it return last week. He talked about season 4 kicking off on Vice TV. We saw Vice TV file for bankruptcy in May. Fans were talking about maybe the show is not continuing, but Husney said, no, this isn't the end. We definitely want to keep the show going. We love making the show and we love telling these stories. Your thoughts on this? Did you watch the Chris Candido Sunny episode yet? Do you think this is just Husney trying to do PR control, but going bankrupt, to me, like, that's a sign that the show may not continue. Maybe they'll sell the rights off to somebody else and have a different TV fund it, maybe.
I did not get to watch the Candido Sunny episode yet. I'm a big fan of Dark Side of the Ring. I'm an even bigger fan of Evan Husney. I think he's a good fan. I know they took some heat with the whole Plane Ride from Hell episode, and people felt like they weren't fair in certain aspects of Tommy Dreamer and things like that. Whatever you feel about that, go with God. But Evan Husney, he has a podcast called One Fucking Hour. It's a movie podcast. I love it. So I'm a big fan of his stuff. But he went on to say, like, I thought it was Vice TV that was going bankrupt. And he said that, he's not someone who can comment on behalf of the company or anything. But from what was explained to Evan Husney, it's business as usual, because Vice TV, the channel, the entity, is a separate entity from Vice Media. Vice Media was the one that went bankrupt. So he says, we're good to go and we want to keep going and we have plans to. He said even doing their little offshoot show, Tales from the Territories, it kind of reignited their love of territory stuff, and that they, going into that, made them realize that there's so many stories for Dark Side of the Ring they could tap into from those days, whether it's the Junkyard Dog, Adrian Adonis. There's so many territory stories that they want to bring into Dark Side of the Ring. So hopefully, with Vice TV being kind of separate from Vice Media and it not being affected by this bankruptcy, we'll get to see more Dark Side of the Rings.
I agree with that. Let's get to Dave's raves and hear what Dave had to say this week.
Dave raves.
All right. For the newsletter that dropped on Friday, we have his match of the week was Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta and Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega, Adam Page, and the Young Bucks. So BCC versus the Elite and Anarchy in the Arena, May 28th, Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. I have some numbers here as far as the number of 5-star matches we have from Anarchy in the Arena, because this got 5 stars from Meltzer, and people were surprised. He gave Anarchy in the Arena last year a 5-star rating. Some of the other metrics, and we talk about this all, whatever, if you value Meltzer's 5-star ratings, the Young Bucks now have been in 10 matches rated 5 stars or above. Kenny Omega has been in 23. The record's 25 right now. Moxley's been in 4, Danielson has been in 5, and Hangman Page has been in 5. So this is the first 5-star match for both Claudio and Wheeler Yuta, according to Meltzer. He gave Anarchy in the Arena last year 5 stars. It's a different type of match. He also was saying about the match in general, some different things, and you don't really think about this, but he said the Anarchy in the Arena match was super, but so much was going on that the cameras missed a lot. And from being there live, it was impossible to follow everything. But based on what I've seen, it feels like this was a far better match to watch live. It was put on last, which it should have been, because you don't want to have to follow this with anything. The BCC team of Bryan Danielson, John Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio defeated the Elite. Talk about the different spots in this. And he said the general feeling was at the end of the match, Omega was referring to Kota Ibushi, maybe Okada. And he says this is probably heading towards blood and guts in a 5-on-5 match as well. So he agrees with us. He also talked about the Battle Royal being one of the best traditional Battle Royals he's ever seen, which I agree with.
Yeah, it was great.
So interesting enough. And also his Performer of the Week wasn't part of this, but it was Master Wato, who we talked about last week, won the Best of Super Juniors. And he also lost in his title shot against Takahashi for the Junior Heavyweight Championship. Master Wato coming out surprisingly the Best Super Juniors. And that's Dave's opinion on the week.
And here's what you should take if people don't follow Dave and the Observer. It's kind of impressive he gives matches like this 5 stars, because Dave is not a hardcore match guy. He's not, and he's very upfront about it. It's typically not his type of match. He was pretty critical of the Hangman Moxley match that happened with the screwdriver, all of that. He was pretty critical of it. We're both fans of the Observer, Ace. Do you think there's a narrative out there from WWE fans? Do you think Dave plays favorites with AEW match quality, or do you think they just provide the style that he likes?
I think it's the second part. I think it's a big piece because people put so much significance on his opinion. At the end of the day, it's his opinion. You guys can go out there, anybody can go out there and give their rating on any match. And whether they believe Anarchy in the Arena was 5 stars, he's giving 5 stars to the WWE side. He's giving high ratings and he's rated other shows that way. But I think his style and his fandom relates more to the Japanese hard-hitting, strong style, and AEW traditionally technically sound style than the storytelling on the WWE side. That doesn't make him right or wrong. He just has the loudest voice in the room because people want to put more significance on it. So I don't think he's playing favorites. I think predominantly he's always been this way. It's consistent. If you watch any of the matches that he's given 5 stars, and the list is out there, you can go check them out. They all pretty much have the same stuff in common. He doesn't give 5 stars for a match that doesn't have technically sound type of wrestling, mostly. I mean, if you go look at the list, I'm sure there's some in there that bleed a little more story than actual wrestling, but this is the same dude who broke the scale for Okada Omega. Like, this is not just an AEW thing. This is just what he likes. And again, if you
I agree completely.
Place importance on that, that's on you. Like, if you mad at him for his opinion, I'm mad at you for your opinion. You know what I mean? Like, leave him alone.
Exactly. I agree. I think it's just what he likes, and he's done this for so long that his ratings have grown a respect to them within the wrestling community. And if you're mad at him, you're just mad at one guy's opinion of what a match is. And I know if I was in Dave's position, or if I had more eyes on me and they were looking at what matches I like, the stuff I like, I'm not big on the performance center style of wrestling. I think everyone wrestles the same over there. Now, sure, that you're going to get a Dragunov, who did he just face? What's the other Dijak?
Yeah.
Like
over on Battleground, you mean?
Yeah, they're going to have a match like that. They're going to have Gunther versus Sheamus. There's matches that will pop for me in WWE, but just like from a broad general sense, I tend to lean towards New Japan, AEW, Impact, where they're a little more free to do what they want and bring their own flavor to it instead of kind of being filtered through that WWE way of wrestling a match.
Yeah, and when you look at the 5-star matches he's had, and I know the Extra Cooler Boys just covered Ric Flair and Terry Funk in the I Quit match, that got 5 stars. And he's been doing this for a long time, and his track record has been pretty much, he rates matches that he likes 5 stars. If you don't like his newsletter, here's what you guys can do. Start your own, make your own star ratings, and then people can argue with you on Twitter.
Right.
Like, I don't know what to tell people. Like, again, he's the loudest voice in the room because if you don't like him, don't consume him. And he is the the guidance through history of wrestling. I don't agree all the time. Would I give Anarchy in the Arena 5 stars? Probably not. It's somewhere between 4 and 5 for me. It's probably, to me, 4.25, but he happened to be live in the arena, and I know the experience is different.
It's
so
4.
That affects.
It would be a solid 4 for me.
Yeah, I would say mine would be like 4.25, something like that. I think 5 is very generous, but again, he saw stuff we didn't see, and that a lot gets lost in translation on TV. And there's match ratings that I don't agree. Do I think Kenny Omega and Okada was, I think he gave it a 6.75. Do I think it was that good? Maybe not, but it's at least 5 stars. But again, it's his rating. Like, let him do his thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'm with you. I don't agree with Dave at all, but I respect the fuck out of him. I think he's one of the great historians of the sport, and we need that.
100%. Let's get to the week ahead and see what other 5-star match will be on this card.
The week ahead.
All right, let's start with the WWE side. As you guys are listening to this, we're in the middle of Raw, but we have 3 matches on the docket. First and foremost, we have the Women's Money in the Bank qualifying match, Zoe Stark versus Natalya. We have another Women's Money in the Bank qualifying match, Becky Lynch versus Sonya Deville. And we have the World Heavyweight Championship being defended on Raw for the first time since Big E was champion. Seth Rollins defending his championship against Damian Priest. So, Raw, pretty much, some good matches here. I like to see the title defended. They're calling it a Workman's Championship. Consolation prize be damned. At least we have a championship being defended on Raw.
Yeah, if one thing comes out of that title that I like that they're featuring world title matches on the show. That's good.
So for SmackDown, we have 4 Money in the Bank qualifying matches on the men's side, Santos Escobar versus Mustafa Ali, and also Butch versus Baron Corbin. On the women's side, we have Bayley versus Mishin and Io Sky versus Shotzi. So Money in the Bank will be a little bit more clear about who will be in that match. For the women's side, I'm not really sure, but as we mentioned before, I think LA Knight is ticketed to win that, and they'd be wrong if they didn't.
Yeah, I'm hoping Io Sky gets the first crack at Asuka, and Shotzi upsets her in this Money in the Bank. I always like Money in the Bank being kind of the mid-card. It's like your next step. It's featuring a lot of people who need the shine, and you're coronating a new top guy. That's how I like when they used to do it like that. I don't want to see top guys win the Money in the Bank most times. I want to,
like when Lesnar came in and stole it. Yeah.
I want to see like that briefcase be an opportunity for someone to show that they can step up to the main event level. So I hope they lean into that more.
So on AEW Dynamite this Wednesday, we have the AEW International Championship on the line. Orange Cassidy defending against Swerve Strickland. We also get Jay White versus Ricky Starks, and Juice Robinson and FTR are banned from ringside. We're going to get Jungle Hook, Jack Perry, and Hook versus Preston Vance and Dralistico in a Texas Tornado match. And we're going to hear from the champ himself. MJF will cut a promo. He wasn't on last week. We saw a tape promo from him. We're going to get him in the ring. So Dynamite looking pretty good. I'm most looking forward to Cassidy versus Swerve Strickland. They're probably going to open with it, but I think they should main event with it. I think they should go out strong with that match.
Yeah, I think if they open with it, Orange will probably retain. If they close with it, I wouldn't be shocked if Swerve wins that title. They could do it. That's what I'm loving now.
Yeah.
Like they could pull the trigger on Orange losing at any moment now. And I'm really interested on that MJF promo, because if he's just coming out to talk, there is a possibility someone could interrupt and we see who's next. We still don't know who his feud's going to be with. So I'm going to have my eyes peeled on that MJF promo.
So NXT on Thursday, we have the Women's Championship number 1 contender Battle Royal. We got Eddie Thorpe versus Damon Kemp. The Schism, which is Jagger, Reed, Rip Fowler, and Ava taking on the Diamond Mine, Ivy Nile, Brutus Creed, and Julius Creed. And Dragunov is going to return to action on NXT. So are they catching steam with you? I hear there's a couple of podcasts and some people in the Pod Foundation throwing some flowers towards NXT. I know the Extra Cooler Boys are a little high on NXT lately. Chick Foley was talking about how it's getting better. Do you agree with that, or you just haven't seen enough of it?
I mean, the match quality, I feel like it's hit or miss. Like some of the matches are kind of hearkening back to Black and Gold, but there's a lot of green shit on there too. And I think even the people throwing love to them, like I heard Seth on Chick Foley throwing love to it, they're quick to say they lack star power. which I know that's the place where they're building their star. They're finding themselves. There's guys on there I like, but I really just don't like the aesthetic of it all. I don't know, man. I'm not big on NXT.
Until they turn over a main eventer and create a new star from there, I won't buy into it. So Grayson Waller has to become a big star, Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes. Someone needs to come out of that and be a player on the main roster. That just hasn't happened. It hasn't happened in quite some time.
No, and there's a lot of dangerous, like if you watch NXT, man, some of those matches are like some of the low card stories they're telling. It's hard to watch. Like I honestly see better wrestling at my local indies than some of these matches that they're putting on live network TV.
So, I mean, we saw some of the names there at the card. They're trying to get their reps in on live TV, which is hard to learn on the fly like that. They're on,
it's extremely hard. And I just think some of those wrestlers, like you should be able to have those matches without the world watching you. It's unfair to the talent. I'm not shitting on the talent. Everybody starts somewhere, but is it like 8 p.m. USA Network? I don't know. And they do have great. The Creed brothers, phenomenal. Like Braun Breaker really breaking out, especially with the heel stuff. That Dragunov Dijak, I always forget his name. I always think his name. Yeah. But they put on a banger. Like they have great stuff, and I'm a huge Dragunov fan. I love Dragunov, but it's been lacking for me. It's been lacking for me ever since they rebranded it. It really has. Like it hasn't caught my attention.
So what has caught our attention is Impact. That's gonna be on Thursday. We have the digital media champion Joe Hendry versus Sheldon Gene in a non-title match. The Knockouts Tag Team Championship on the line. The Coven, which is Taylor Wilde and Kylan King, are defending against the Death Dolls, Jessica and Courtney Rush. And we have Moose and Rich Swann taking on Nick Aldis and John Gresham in the main event. This is all building towards Impact Against All Odds. Believe it or not, we have another pay-per-view on their end. We just had one, but this will be on June 9th in Columbus, Ohio. We have Steve Macklin defending against Alex Shelley. We have an 8-4-1 match for the Impact World title. Nick Aldis, Bully Ray, Jonathan Gresham, Heath, Moose, Speedball Mike Bailey, Rich Swann, and PCO all competing in the 8-4-1 match. The X Division titles on the line. Trey Miguel defending against Chris Sabin. We get Master Slamovich versus Killer Kelly in a dog collar match. Wow. The Impact Tag Team Championship on the line. ABC, which is Chris Bay and Ace Austin, defending against the Good Hands, John Schuyler and Jason Hotch. Deanna Prazo and Trinity are defending against Giselle Shaw and Savannah Evans. Finally, Eddie Edwards versus Frankie Kazarian. Impact just turning out solid cards, even a week removed from their last pay-per-view.
They're doing good stuff, man. Like that 8-4-1 match. What a mix of talent.
Yeah.
Aldis, Bully Ray, Gresham, Heath, Moose, Speedball, Rich Swann, and then PCO. Like I feel like I'm beating a drum because every time we talk about Impact and what's going on, we're like, man, you're sleeping. People are sleeping on it. You really need to watch and pay attention to what's going on there. But it's so true. It's so true. Like I love the mix of homegrowns with TNA history guys, with low to mid card WWE guys getting a second shot to show themselves. Low key guys, honestly, you could argue this is the second best roster in pro wrestling. There's an argument.
For sure. And we talked about working together, collaborating in different promotions. We have a 3-promotion show coming up this weekend on Friday, 6/9/23. New Japan Pro Wrestling, All Japan Pro Wrestling, and Pro Wrestling Noah getting together for a lot of tag matches, but some good stuff here. Top of the card, we have Tanahashi, Miyahara, and Kiyomiya versus Okada, Iyagi, and Keno in a 6-man tag match. Also have Naito versus Naito teaming with Takagi and Bushi, taking on Nagata, Suwama, and Enzai in a 6-man tag match. Other good matches as well. We have the United Empire, which is Francesco Akira, TJP, Aaron Hernari, Great O'Khan, and Jeff Cobb taking on All Japan Pro Wrestling's Jun Saito, Rei Saito, Ryuki Honda, Sato, and Dan Tamara. We also have a one-on-one match. Shota Umino, who we saw in that 6-man at Dominion, versus Yoshitatsu of All Japan Pro Wrestling. A lot of mixed bag of different promotions working together. Kind of the safe route with these tag matches, but still, you got 3 promotions working together. Not a lot of decisions you have to make. There's someone in every match aside from the Umino and Yoshitatsu match where you could probably pin the lesser guy. Like I can pin one of these guys and not be worse for the wear, but I still give them credit for all getting in a room together and bringing this back out here. This is a good promotional thing.
No, yeah, that the story here is these three promotions working together. I don't think you're going to see much story pushing angles and matches for each individual company. I think it's just cool to see three of Japan's biggest, best promotions coming together and putting a show on.
Just keep an eye on Kato Kiyomiya and Okada. They were involved in that work shoot thing earlier in the year. So Kiyomiya is the rising star as well. I mean, he's been absolutely someone to watch, and Okada put a lot of shine on him as well. I don't know, maybe something to watch as well. Maybe we have some involvement with some of the storytelling Forbidden Door coming into play here. Who knows, man? But
yeah,
I like the fact that three promotions got in a room together. They made matches. And again, like I said, not critiquing, but safe options with these tag matches. Someone's able to get pinned in pretty much every single one of them, the lesser than person. And all the promotions are going to get their win. If you have the scorecard up there, like they used to do at Raw and SmackDown, where like this person got to win, guaranteed it's going to wind up working out in the wash, where all promotions are going to come out smelling like roses. And optically, for me, it's about them working together and setting precedent that it's possible. Can we get a WWE AEW Impact show just like this? I'll take 6-man matches if we can do it. I would do it.
Oh, could you imagine the Elite versus Roman, Seth, and throw in another guy? You know, it would be fun just to see it. It wouldn't have to push story at all. It would just be fun to see talent in the ring together, everyone benefiting from it. I think it would be good for pro wrestling. Honestly, dude, you want to end, I don't know. I was about to say you want to end tribalism. You get companies working together, but that would probably throw gasoline on the fire if they work together, but still.
Well, that's all we got for the week ahead. Let's get into talking about Chad. You have Broken VCR, obviously the debate coming up this Wednesday, dropping audio. What else we got on Monday? Oh, the debate, Jess. What else is going on Tavern Wise?
Yeah, we got you and Colton dropping by on the debate. It was a super fun debate. So go to YouTube to check out the video, and then the audio's live on Apple and Spotify as you're watching this. Broken VCR, we're kicking off our June Gloom series. So this Tuesday, tomorrow, we're dropping our episode on In the Bedroom. Good movie, great movie. Has some attachments to Stanley Kubrick for any fans of that. But theturnbuckletavern.com, guys, check it out. The flagship will be back at its regular time. And yeah, exciting stuff. What do you guys got going on over at Shot of Nostalgia?
This Friday, we're dropping the episode Survivor Series 1998 Deadly Games. Rock gets crowned the corporate champion. They reinvent just a year later, they do the 1997 finish with the sharpshooter. We'll talk about the implications of that as we kind of wrap up 1998 at this point. And believe it or not, we're moving towards season 4 Shot of Nostalgia. As we mentioned, is going to be Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. Myself, Colton, and Mike Belcast are going into it. So we have about 4 more episodes left of Shot of Nostalgia season 3. We're going to get into all the conversation about it. Appreciate everyone joining on the ride, but I cannot wait to see what else comes down the pike for Shot Nostalgia in the future, whether it be season 5 and beyond. So appreciate the support. Make sure you guys are checking out Honor Society as well. Like and subscribe. Give us some love on Instagram. Also, go to remarkablewrestling.com. Check out all the shows we have coming up. We got some big things down the pike. Can't announce everything yet, but there's some big things coming up. So you do not want to miss it coming up. Summer, early fall, school opening, of course, on August 1st, but a lot of good things happening. Remarkable Wrestling, happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, some exciting stuff you kind of tipped me off to. So guys, keep your eyes peeled on that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stay locked in the tavern. There's some things brewing. I know we've been saying that it takes some time, but we have some new stuff that'll be really exciting. A good way for you guys to tap in and interact with us and stay up to date. We have some things in the works. So theturnbuckletavern.com, again, go check it out. Until next Monday, when we wine and dine with you kings and queens, stay out of the alley and away from the pork and beans. God luck and good speed.
Reach for the sky, boy.